Chapter 293. The fifth floor was a big world. A real big world. From the fourth floor arena to the fifth floor, Wang Lu envisioned countless possibilities. For example, the most stringent guardian, the most tricky and strange trap, or the holy light religion's punisher. For this reason, Wang Lu has also fully thought of countermeasures. Powerful guardian, holy light religion's punisher. No matter what. In any case, it was Aya who rushed to the front. When she set out, her anger was off the charts. Obviously, she had unleashed her ultimate move without limit plus her tyrant body. With her former Unity stage strength, she should be able to deal with it. Then he would take his teammates down to harvest the harvest. However, after seeing the true appearance of the fifth floor, Wang Lu took a deep breath and had to admire the cleverness of the administrator. The fifth floor was a big world, a blank big world. Under their feet was a piece of soft soil, and behind them was a thick wall of unknown height and length. Looking around, there was only endless darkness. Seeing this scene without the need for other people to explain, Wang Lu already knew the administrator's trick. Come out. Don't you want to purify me? Then come out and fight me. Why are you hiding? Do you deserve to call yourself the people of the holy light? It was obvious that Aya's anger had soared to the heavens, and there was no trace of her usual calmness. The holy sword in his hand flickered with a flickering light. Although it looked mysterious and magical, Wang Lu felt that the real thing that was shaken by this sword light was Aya's heart. And for Aya, a calm heart was far more important than a boiling fighting spirit. So he gave up on this hipster talk and changed it to a straightforward one. Aya was wasted. Calm down. Wang Lu promptly appeared behind Aya and pressed her shoulder, trying to stop her from going berserk. However, he found that the girl's strength was far stronger than his. When his palm touched her shoulder, it was as if he had touched a boiling flame, which caused his body to violently tremble. What the? I don't want to have sex with you here. Moreover, there's no car here. Seeing that Aya was still burning with anger, Wang Lu also became annoyed. That's enough, dead chef. You promised me to be obedient just now, but do you think my sharp blade is bullshit? Aya's whole body trembled, and her imposing manner immediately dropped. Sorry, I was too impulsive. Alright, what do we do now? Wang Lu said, can your dimensional sword do it again and slash this space? Directly cut through space? Aya was surprised. Using such a crude method? However, if I was at my peak, I might be able to give it a try, but now I am severely lacking in power. The Golden King's treasure house itself is also an incomparably powerful legendary level enchantment. One must have the power of legendary level or above in order to break it. Moreover, the level of a beginner legendary is far from enough. Then there's nothing we can do. Wang Lu shrugged and said helplessly, the other party is very smart and chose the most ingenious method to deal with us. After Aya calmed down, she regained her ability to think. You mean lock us up here? Yes, he used the administrator's authority to arrange some impossible tasks and then use someone else to do the dirty work. There's no need to waste the power of holy light religion. Aya asked, would the rules of the king's treasure house allow such a thing? Of course not. The answer to the question was a rumbling voice that came from the sky above them. It was the administrator who was hiding behind the scenes. According to the rules, I need to explain to you the conditions to pass this level. With that, a bright red rose appeared in front of Wang Lu and the others. Your task is to collect such a flower, and the condition to pass this level is 999 roses. 999 roses? Wang Lu curiously reached out his hand to try to pick the rose in midair, but his finger touched the void. The rose dissipated like mist. It's not a simple rose, is it? Humph, this is something you need to explore by yourself. With that, the voice paused. Breton Dragon Clan bloodline, if you want to take revenge, try to escape from here as long as you can do it. Hiding behind the scenes, is this the style of your holy light religion? Aya restrained her anger and coldly said, don't you have zero tolerance for heretics? I, the Breton Dragon Clan bloodline, am here, don't you dare to come out and see me? Why should I deliberately come out? If you can't escape from here, you're no different than a dead person. What's the difference between trapping you here and sending you to the underworld? Holy light religion people don't even have the courage to fight fair and square? Unfortunately, no matter how Aya questioned, the administrator no longer replied. Give up, they obviously want to shrink their eggs, what can you do? Besides, what they said is very reasonable. If we're trapped here and can't get out, wouldn't we be dead in the eyes of the world? Wang Lu sighed. Let's carefully consider the method to pass this level. What exactly are 999 roses? Hey, someone wants roses? Lu Li suddenly interjected, I have some here, how many do you want? Everyone's eyes turned to her. Luli suddenly seemed a bit embarrassed. She timidly put her hand into her mustard seed bag and fished out a few flour cakes. This is... Sister Ling made it for me. I can't find anything to complain about. Wang Lu was silent for a moment and then helplessly said, "You guys come on, spit this foodie to death. Senior brother, you don't have to be so strict with Luli. Actually, we might as well give it a try." Bai Shixian said, reached out to take Luli's rose cake, broke it open, took out a petal and held it in her hand. A moment later, she opened her hand, and a delicate and juicy rose grew strong and healthy in her palm. According to common sense, this place is deathly still. Let alone roses, there's not even a single weed. Using these roses as the condition is indeed very harsh. Therefore, the condition to pass this level might really be roses. With that, Bai Shixian inserted the rose into the soil under her feet and then leaned down to gently blow the petals. The plump and sturdy petals scattered like dandelions, then each took root in the soil and quickly grew. Not long after, a beautiful field of flowers appeared in front of everyone. 999 roses. There should be enough. Bai Shixian gently exhaled. Using the law of the Western continent to use the mountain spirit's spell was somewhat strenuous. However, in the eyes of other people, this was no different from a miracle. Although the spell to accelerate the growth of plants was not rare in the Western continent, and even the brilliant druids had this ability, but to be able to do it like Bai Shixian was a skill that only a legendary druid could have. And this was also the unique advantage of her immortal beast body. Well, it seems like it won't work. After waiting for a while in the flower field, they didn't see any change in their surroundings. Therefore, they knew that Bai Shixian's attempt had failed. Haha, although it's a bit belated, but seriously, this is the Golden King's treasure house. In the past, the Golden King who conquered and ruled the world with his invincible force, how could he be obsessed with roses? It's hard to imagine such a thing. Wang Lu said with a smile. I have frowned. So, in your opinion, what do you mean by roses? There are too many possibilities, but in my opinion, the first possibility is the collection. Wang Lu explained, roses should be the spoils of war that can only be obtained through special conditions, such as defeating a certain monster, a guardian, or passing a certain trap. Most of them are related to fighting. Golden King is a king who admires martial arts. But the strange thing is, there's no trap here and there's no guardian, so how can we collect them? Even if the administrator deliberately does something bad, shouldn't the basic rules of the treasure house be followed? Then, considering that the final opponent of the 4th level is the Holy Knight and Priest of Holy Light Religion, I think I can assume that the condition to pass this level is to defeat the Holy Light Religion's treasure hunters and collect roses from their corpses. Roses can also be regarded as flowers dyed with blood. In this case, as long as he doesn't send his believers in, we will never be able to collect the roses. Of course, since this is contrary to the basic rules of the treasure house, 1 or 2 people will be sent in every 3 to 5 years. But 999 roses, I don't know when we can collect them. Then, I asked, give me some time, I will adjust my strength. Although I'm not too sure, but if the stone sword goes all out, perhaps it can break this space. Wang Lu snorted. The price is your soul flying away? Aya, you're also a king, so don't work so hard with brute force. Although the current situation is a bit difficult, we still have a flexible way. Flexible way? Wang Lu smiled. It's actually very simple, it's just that you can't remember it. Do you remember what we encountered on the 2nd level? The Golden King's phantom? I suddenly realized. We have received the invitation of Golden King to go deeper into the treasure house to please his distinguished guests by completing all kinds of tests. However, now there's a worker who doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth abusing his power to stop us on the 5th level. What do you think will happen next? Aya slightly hesitated. But Golden King has been dead for many years, so what's left here is just a phantom. Even if it's a phantom, it's still the phantom of Golden King. Do you think the Holy Light Religion Administrator or the Phantom of Golden King has a higher status? So do you think Golden King will help us? Wang Lu said, of course not, why would he help us? But what if it's us who help him? For example, in this case, instead of saying that Golden King helped us through the difficulties, it's better to say that we helped Golden King eliminate the unqualified administrator. We are the distinguished guests of Golden King, yet the administrator actually dares to detain us here. This kind of disobedience to the will of Golden King's subjects cannot be redeemed even if they die 100 times. Wang Lu said and then looked up at the sky. Your Majesty, what do you think? A moment later, a burst of pleasant laughter came from the sky. Ah, you really know how to talk, bastard. Chapter 294. Greetings, Your Majesty. Upon hearing the voice in the sky, Wang Lu gently bowed and then told his teammates through primordial spirit, "Everyone, don't open your mouth, just let me talk to him. Golden King's situation is special. Your interruption will only worsen the situation." Aya subconsciously asked, "Huh?" Because the efficiency of primordial spirit was extremely high, Wang Lu patiently explained, "Think about it. He's clearly in a bad situation. Now is the time when his heart is fragile. What if you, this bunch of big and rough people, annoy him?" Wait a minute, big and rough refers to me? Aya was shocked and angry at the same time. Hey, your focus is obviously not right. Take good care of Golden King no matter what, he's your peer. Yes, what's wrong with him? Aha, you don't believe me when I say you're big and rough. Think about it, what kind of person is Golden King? He wanted to dominate the world, he was talented and bold, but his personality was polarized. To loyal and outstanding officials, he was generous, but to anyone who dared to disobey him, regardless of whether they were rich or poor, he would punish them in the most cruel and merciless way. So, why would such a king tolerate the existence of holy light religion? Has his temperament changed after 10,000 years? In other words, he's powerless? It's obvious. If he really has control over the treasure house, would he allow so many people to treasure? No matter how much he flaunts his wealth and displays his generosity, is he sick to let a group of treasure hunters from all over the continent who have no loyalty to him or even respect him take away his treasures? It's clear that he's only a wisp of remnant soul, powerless to do anything that happens on the continent. This is really unbelievable. Aya shook her head. Although she didn't agree with Golden King's ruling philosophy, she also admired his political and martial arts skills. Unexpectedly, after 10,000 years, the former overlord was so miserable. What's so unbelievable about it? Are you in a better situation than him? Aren't you also a soul of the brave departed? Moreover, you're a penniless soul of the brave departed, while he still has a treasure house. Alas, in short, this is probably your occupational disease, right? You're the occupational disease. In short, Golden King is at a low point in his life. If there is no savior from the stars to help him, he probably won't be able to recover. But in the end, he was the overlord of the world. As a king, his dignity and aloofness made it impossible for him to tolerate insults, and it was also impossible for him to accept sympathy from his inferiors. Therefore, we must be careful when we talk to him. On the one hand, we must be polite, but on the other hand, we cannot be too attentive and make him feel that we are sympathizing with him. A king did not need sympathy, only admiration and loyalty. Only a professional adventurer with a meticulous heart like me can handle it. You big and burly people should just shut up. Well, I'm going to talk to Golden King. You just need to pay attention to maintaining your role as a beauty, don't say a word and show an infinitely beautiful puzzled expression. Through primordial spirit sound transmission, Wang Lu ended his commentary, and then the next moment, a sudden voice rang out. Just say it here, you bastard. Aren't you well prepared? What the hell, Golden King? This time even Wang Lu was taken aback. This primordial spirit voice transmission was a very private method. It could be interfered with and interrupted, but if one wanted to cut into it, it would require a great ability. At least, on Spirit Sword Mountain, only the elders of Heavenly Sword Hall could do it. Oh, that's right, Golden King was a legendary powerhouse, so it was not difficult for him to eavesdrop on the conversation of several juniors. In short, if he heard it, then so be it. One must always look forward. Hello, Your Majesty. Humph, just now you were very happy, you bastard. Aha, since you have heard it yourself, do you have any advice? Bastard, are you really tired of living? Otherwise, would you accept my apology? Alas, I don't want to do this, but since it's been made clear, then let's be straightforward. Your Majesty Golden King, I need your help, and we are also willing to offer our strength for you to use. It's a fair trade, there are gains and losses. Although our strength is meager, it should be of use to you now. Wang Lu tried to change his tone to persuade the other party, but Golden King just laughed wildly. Ah, self-righteous bastard, do I need your strength? Bastards like you who haven't even crossed the threshold of high order, there are as many as I want in my country. In reality, Wang Lu sighed and said to Aya and the others, see, this is what I called glass heart. Obviously he's already down and out like this, but he still wants to save face. Aya exclaimed, hey, you're talking in real life. I'm sorry, I forgot, but it doesn't matter, Golden King is inside his primordial spirit, so he can't hear it. You're lying to yourself. Bastard, if you want to go out, there's only one way. In reality, Golden King just happened to interrupt Wang Lu's self-deception. Wang Lu said, Your Majesty, I know you must have a way. Aha, how could a mere administrator disobey the Supreme Golden King? As long as you open your mouth, I think there are exits everywhere. Humph, ignorant bastard. The rules set by me are absolute. Wang Lu smiled. Even the rule maker can't violate it? Don't tease me, how can there be a ruler who respects the law? Yes, if I want to, it's not difficult for you to leave, but why should I help you? Do you want to break the rules set by me for a few bastards? Listen, if you want to leave, you have to collect 999 roses according to my rules. As you guessed, the rose must be soaked with the soul of middle order profession or above. So, go and kill 999 middle order professions for me. This place is deserted. Where do you want us to find 999 middle order professions? Could it be? Wang Lu said, looked at Aya, Lu Li, and the others around him, and then asked, do you want me and them to give birth to 999 children, and then train them into middle order professions and then sacrifice them to you? Aya said, Wang Lu, what nonsense are you talking about? Lu Li said, give birth to children? Give birth to children. Haha, senior brother, do you really want to give birth to a lot of children? I like children very much. Give birth to them for me to play with, okay? Wang Lu counted with his fingers. If that's the case, Aya, Lu Li, and Bai Shisheng can be used as human cauldrons for a total of 3 people. Not considering miscarriage, premature death, and other factors, each of them would give birth to an average of 333 children. According to the calculation of 10 months of pregnancy, it would take more than 200 years. Tisk, it's better than staying here forever. So, Golden King, do you mean we have to wait for more than 200 years? Golden King was silent for a long time and then finally said, you're really a whimsical bastard. In my country, I need a comedian like you. After a pause, Golden King said, when did I say you should collect 999 roses here? Wang Lu was stunned. But if we don't collect enough. Hey, you mean release for medical treatment? Golden King said, leave a part of your soul here and the rest I can let you go. With that, a purple portal opened in the darkness. Through this portal, a part of your soul will be harvested as evidence that you are still here. When you have finished collecting, you will be transmitted to this place from any entrance that you enter my treasure house. This portal can last for 100 years. After 100 years, I don't need to say more. Wang Lu nodded. Thank you, Your Majesty, for your grace. Humph, my grace is not for nothing. I have a condition. How to collect 999 roses? You whimsical bastard, I don't need to remind you, do I? Of course, Your Majesty, please rest assured. Aha, I see the light of day again. With a cheerful cheer from Wang Lu, the group of people left the purple portal and appeared outside Taba City. The warm sunshine sprinkled on their faces, making them look exceptionally warm. Leaving from the dead silence of the darkness, they all felt that their bodies seemed to be a little lighter. Wang Lu said with a sinister smile, the weight of the soul. Aya glared at him angrily, but when she turned around and saw that Lu Li and the others were carefree, she had to admit that her worry was purely superfluous. In fact, Golden King's portal was indeed mysterious. Obviously, a part of his soul had been separated, but there was no difference when he moved. According to legend, Golden King was the closest mortal to God, and his control of the soul was far above anyone else. Such a method, even after thousands of years, was still amazing. However, she still had a question: will we be discovered if we leave like this? I mean, can Golden King's ability hide from the administrator? I always feel that Golden King's ability to control the treasure house is very low. Although he appears calm, but... Wang Lu lightly said, he is Golden King. I was curious. Do you respect Golden King? I have respect for any strong person, and Golden King is undoubtedly the most powerful person. If possible, I would like to see what he looked like when he was alive. So, what are you going to do with the 999 roses? Do you still need to ask? Holy Light Religion and Golden King are mortal enemies. Since they want to kill middle-order professions, of course, they want to kill the Holy Light Religion swindlers. However, 1,000 middle-order professions is not a lot, but it's not that easy to gather. In 9 regions, middle-order professions should correspond to Foundation Establishment Stage, right? 1,000 Foundation Establishment Stage cultivators, even Holy Light Religion is not easy to gather. But I have an idea, I don't know if you agree with it, Aya? What? Previously, the administrator mentioned the Purification War. According to him, it's a war between Holy Light Religion and your country and Breton Dragon Clan. Moreover, judging from the tone of voice, it should have happened not too long ago. It shouldn't be that easy to purify your blood, right? Aya, I haven't asked you before, But what was the strength of your country in its heyday? Although it can't be compared with Golden King's country in terms of military power, it's one of the most powerful in the world. Aya's heroism was hard to conceal. There are more than 100 senior professions, and there are thousands of middle-order professions. In 9 regions, no mortal country can match it. It's a powerful force close to the 5 uniques of the Wuxia League. Breton Dragon Clan has an ancient bloodline that has been passed down for tens of thousands of years. Their branches are flourishing and their powerhouses come forth in large numbers. Oh? I didn't know that you, Aya, can give birth so easily. What? Nothing, I just want to say that if Holy Light religion wants to destroy such a bloodline, in addition to expecting the peaceful evolution of your Dragon Clan bloodline, they have to come up with an absolutely crushing military force. At the same time, after the extermination, they have to station a strong army to suppress the rebellion. And that strong army is the best target. Aya, whether it's you who want to restore your country, or I who want to find deeper treasures in the king's treasure house, this is a step that must be taken. Aya, go to your country. Chapter 295. My country? Hearing Wang Lu's suggestion, Aya was somewhat absent-minded. Go back now? Hey, don't look like an ugly daughter-in-law who doesn't dare to see her parents-in-law. Although you have an A cup, isn't your face very beautiful? Moreover, you should be mentally prepared. Sooner or later you will have to return to your country. Aya said, but I didn't expect it to be so fast. I'm not ready. Damn, are you a big girl going to get a room? Why are you still preparing? You're the Night King, okay? More than 100 years ago, you pulled out the stone sword that symbolized the royal power and ruled the country with the posture of a slender girl. At that time you didn't have stage fright, but now you're afraid? No, I just don't know how to face all of this. Aya looked gloomy and lowered her head. I've done too many things wrong. Wang Lu anxiously said, if you have done something wrong, then apologize. If you apologize, then show your chest. No, do you still need to ask how to face all of this? Of course, it's to take revenge for everyone, and then strive to restore the country for everyone's happiness. Everything has to look forward. Moreover, don't forget what I said, as long as the country is not restored, there will be no King Pill. How long are you going to let me stay and shoot on stage? Listen, the restoration of the country is now led by me. You know your own situation. In addition to your swordsmanship, you are a wastrel who indulges in the past. It's impossible to expect you to do anything by yourself. You can't even cook well. Hey? Aya trembled with anger. If you're not convinced, then prove it to me. Prove that you can cook, or prove that you are a warrior who dares to face the reality. I think the latter is easier. In short, your country, you lead the way. Wang Lu unquestionably said, then whistled to summon the nightmare carriage and opened the door. Get in. Aya's country was located in the west of the central part of the western continent. It was a rich and beautiful land called Bretonia. The so-called Bretonia originally referred to the land of the Breton Dragon Clan. A long time ago, a large number of dragons lived in this fertile land. Later, along with the prosperity of the human clan, the dragons gradually hid behind the scenes, playing the role of a guide and a well-wishers. At the same time, with the frequent exchanges between the two races, the bloodline of the dragon race was gradually passed down, relying on the astonishing reproductive ability of the human race to develop and strengthen. The Breton Dragon Clan no longer referred to the ancient Dragon Clan, but more to humans with Dragon Clan bloodline. In fact, it had been a long time since anyone had seen a pure-blooded dragon. The inheritance of Breton Dragon Clan's bloodline, like the majority of the bloodline inheritance in the Western continent, did not fully comply with the common sense of human beings. When two people with powerful bloodlines combined, the offspring might only show a few characteristics of the Dragon Clan's bloodline. On the other hand, two almost mortal blood descendants could give birth to a powerful descendant. Of course, if they did not contain the Dragon Clan's bloodline at all, then no matter what, it would be impossible to give birth to a Dragon Clan bloodline. At the same time, those with powerful bloodlines would have a higher probability of having powerful descendants. The most outstanding among all the blood descendants became the Breton king. The previous king was Aya. Inheriting the purest Dragon Clan bloodline, she showed amazing talent at a young age. Even before her bloodline fully matured, she was already close to the legendary level. Of course, there was Aya's own efforts, but the strength of the Breton Dragon Clan's bloodline could also be seen. The group of people chatted on the road. When it came to bloodline, Aya couldn't help but sigh with emotion. The situation in the Western continent is very different from your 9 regions. Here, the influence of bloodline accounts for the majority. With bloodline you are a profession, and from then on you can be aloof. Because even if you're just a beginner profession, you're still a profession. Moreover, with bloodline your status is no less than an ordinary aristocrat. Here there are no geniuses from humble origins, and there is no artificial spirit root that can change the fate of mortals. Without bloodline you're just a mortal, mediocre for life. Wang Lu thought for a moment. You can give birth to the offspring of a profession by mating with a profession, and then change the fate of the mother by virtue of the son. The bloodline born from the union of a mortal and a profession is very weak, even worse than the mixed spirit root and waste spirit root of your 9 regions. You need to invest a lot of resources in order to have a little bit of effect. The possibility of giving birth to a good heir is very low. Then use quantity to overwhelm everything. Try a few more times and you'll eventually succeed. Aya was silent for a long time. You're right, on our side the life of a profession was indeed. Until people found out that having too many illegitimate children was not helpful to change their situation, and this upsurge gradually cooled down. In short, the situation here is very different. You should carefully read the advanced instruction manual that I gave you before. This continent is very complicated, and even I, the Night King, dare not say how much I know about it. You can't understand the truth just by relying on the written records that have spread to 9 regions. Wang Lu nodded and pointed at the bustling place in front of them. Here we are. Golden Flash Town is in front of us. Golden Flash Town was Aya's designated first stop in Bretonia. During Aya's reign, it was one of the most prosperous towns in the country. In addition to the local precious ore, the most important thing was that Golden Flash Town was the burial place of the former Dragon King of Breton Dragon Clan, Golden Flash Dragon. According to legend, the god-level creature gave its life's essence to this place, and Golden Flash Town also had a lot of Dragon Clan bloodline. Wait a minute, don't you think there's something wrong with your description? His life's essence was spread here, so there are a lot of Dragon Clan bloodline. May I ask, how did Golden Flash Dragon spread his essence? Can you describe it in detail? Aya helplessly stared at Wang Lu, and then explained, when I was in power, Golden Flash Town was the famous hometown of Dragon Clan. 1/10 of the Middle Order Knights under my command came from Golden Flash Town. If Holy Light religion is really targeting the Breton Dragon Clan bloodline, this place must be an important battlefield. Wang Lu said, right now it looks quite peaceful. There are no people in misery and there are no ruins everywhere. I also hope that the so-called purification war is just nonsense. Aya said, but she shook her head. But there's no point in deceiving others and ourselves. Holy Light religion, unless they're really colluding with evil spirits, would not put everything in the light. They would not easily carry out a massacre against ordinary people. Moreover, I feel that under the calm appearance of this Golden Flash Town, there's a big crisis. In short, let's go and see it first. Do we need to use illusion to hide our identity? Is there any trouble in using the appearance of a 9 regions person here? Wang Lu suggested. Your illusion? Forget it. Aya showed a look of lingering fear as if she remembered the unbearable past. There's no need to be so troublesome. Golden Flash Town is an open place for communication. When I was in power, there were some scholars from 9 regions who came to explore the secret of Golden Flash Dragon. Your existence will not attract too much attention. Really? Before I came out of the mountain, I learned a brilliant illusion from 6th Uncle, which can pass off as genuine. No need. At the same time, in the holy land of Holy Light religion, Taba City, deep in the king's treasure house, a priest in a platinum robe slowly opened his eyes. The remnant of Breton Dragon Clan? Interesting, there's actually such a powerful blood descendant here. Is the purification war not thorough enough? After a pause, the priest closed his eyes and then opened them again. 9 regions cultivator? At such a young age, you've mastered the law transformation, you should be a genius disciple of a big sect, right? Unfortunately, you still have to die here. 999 roses, don't even think about coming out within 5,000 years. And in this world, who can live for 5,000 years? 9 regions cultivators are indeed long-lived, but after a long time, they will turn into a handful of dust. Humph, I have to thank the time distortion of this treasure house, which allows me to experience the passage of thousands of years in a short time. The last time I used this trick to deal with the heresy, what did they do? It seems that in the 70th year they begged for my forgiveness at all costs. Then in the 73rd year they committed suicide in despair. Living alone in an absolutely dead space is more painful than any torture in the world. Those dwarf flute players from the Plateau Mountain, who are known to have a mind of steel, could only endure for a few decades. What can these Eastern cultivators do? I heard that they are good at cultivating their mind. Perhaps they can let me play this game a bit longer. How about we take a look at their current performance? Have they understood the secret of the rose? Perhaps I can give them a hint so that they will be more desperate. After saying that, the priest closed his eyes again. His figure became erratic and gradually merged with the space around him. His consciousness sank into the thousands of independent spaces in the king's treasure house and quickly locked on one of them. This was one of the abilities that was given to him as an administrator. However, just as he entered the 5th level of the imprisoned space, the priest heard a burst of laughter that shocked him. Haha, holy light religion fools really think that they can trap us forever with this trick. What a fantasy, what a fantasy. Isn't it just 999 middle-order professions? My 3 junior sisters, from now on, let's work hard to procreate, and then let our children receive the most orthodox training to become middle-order professions. In this way, in 333 years, we can get out of here. Boom. The priest felt as if someone threw a powder keg into his brain, and his 3 views were shattered in the fire. Work hard to procreate? 333 years? Does this guy want to? Come on, junior sisters, senior brother's stick is already unbearably hungry, ha. But we can't let that perverted administrator see our good deed. While speaking, the priest saw a pink mist spread out in front of him, and his field of vision was unexpectedly sealed, unable to see through the mist. However, he didn't need to look. Through the bursts of heart-shaking, seemingly painful yet joyful women's moans, how could the priest not know what they were doing? This is simply outrageous. The priest trembled with anger. What kind of place do you think the sacred Golden King's treasure house is? I want to send down divine punishment so that their souls fly away and scatter. Wait a minute, this is exactly what they want. They want to use this trick to lure me to take action and pass the test ahead of time. The basic rules of the king's treasure house cannot be changed. I have used 999 roses to set up the most rigorous test. If there is an additional test, they will be directly sent to the 6th floor. No, I must restrain myself. At this time, the laughter of the young cultivator came from the space. Haha, junior sisters, senior brother has just calculated wrongly. Why would it take 300 years? As long as we diligently practice the yin and yang unity method, we can give birth to daughters, and then I will be a good ghost father so that all of them will be pregnant with my children. At most, it will only take 20 years or so to get out of here. It would be even better if we have multiple births, ha ha ha. You all have to die. At the same time, in the depths of the treasure house, a golden shadow couldn't help but spit. This damn bastard, what kind of shameful illusion did he leave behind? They dare to defile my treasure house. They can't be redeemed even if they die 10,000 times. Chapter 296. Stop, tell me who you are. Outside Golden Flash Town, Wang Lu and his party were blocked by the guards. 2 guards, dressed in light armor and armed with spears, crossed their weapons in front of the carriage. Although in front of the nightmare beast, the obstruction of the 2 mortal guards was like a mantis trying to stop a chariot. However, the guards' posture was extremely firm. Humph, they haven't lost their former spirit. Inside the carriage, Aya secretly nodded. The people of the Night King should inherit the spirit of the night, humble but not inferior. Even in the face of an opponent that was far above them, they should still maintain their posture. Now it seemed that although the kingdom of the night had perished, the spirit of the night had still been passed down. Ridiculous. In this regard, Wang Lu just shook his head and then got off the carriage and came to the guards. You too, we are loitering scholars from the eastern city-states. Wang Lu said in a proficient Western continent language, we are not suspicious people. The guards were still vigilant. Do you have any documents to prove your identity? Like many countries in 9 regions, when people migrated, they needed to prove their identity. Some countries in the Western continent also had similar regulations, especially in the countries under the rule of Holy Light religion. People like Wang Lu and his party who came from the 9 regions had to be doubly vigilant. This was the duty of the guards. Even if Wang Lu and his party were obviously extraordinary, they were no exception. Wang Lu smiled. Documents? Of course. With that, Wang Lu took out a cloth bag from his waist which made a jingling sound. Please check it carefully, the documents are absolutely reliable. Aya was surprised. Are you trying to bribe them? Don't make fun of me, they can't. Before her voice fell, she heard the 2 guards chuckle and said, I understand, they are indeed not suspicious people. Please come in. Then, without any obstruction, the carriage went straight into Golden Flash Town. When Wang Lu got on the carriage, he smiled at the sluggish Aya and said, Haha, it seems that some spirits are more ancient than the spirit of the night. Aya somewhat unwillingly said, This is just an individual phenomenon. I believe in my people. I believe in chivalry. Wang Lu shrugged. Well, you still believe in love and Santa Claus, right? Although I don't know what Santa Claus is, what's wrong with believing in love? Wang Lu sneered and then snapped his fingers at Lu Li. Junior sister, tell her. While eating the flour cake, Lu Li said, Senior brother taught me that love comes and goes quickly, only pork roll is eternal. What the hell are you teaching? During the dispute, the carriage had already entered the center of the town. Gold's Higher Town was a place of frequent exchanges. There were many inns in the town, but they still could not meet the needs of the large influx of tourists. Along the way, most of the inns were overcrowded. Considering that his identity was sensitive, under Aya's guidance, Wang Lu went straight to a secluded inn. Ah, it's been so long, but this inn is still operating. When the carriage approached the inn, Aya sighed softly, it's really nostalgic. A long time ago when I was patrolling Gold's Higher Town, I lived here for a short time. Although this inn is inconspicuous, and almost no one would come to stay, it's actually run by an aristocratic family. The environment is quite comfortable, and the service is also very considerate. However, when they arrived at the entrance of the inn, Aya was surprised to find that there were already a lot of people gathered there. Most of them were luxuriously dressed, and many of them revealed a strong professional aura. I'm sorry, the inn is full. I really can't entertain more people. Please go back. At the door, a 13 or 14-year-old girl with bright eyes was politely rejecting the guests with an apologetic expression. Are you blind? Our master is the only son of the Grand Boulder City's registrar. How dare you neglect him? So that's how it is. I'll explain the situation to the guest who just checked in and let him give you the room, okay? Humph, at least you know what's good for you. Yes. The guests just now claim to be the family of the city lord of the Red Scale City. I believe that since they are the city lord, they should be understanding of your difficulties. I will go and talk to them now. Wait a minute. The city master of the Red Scale City? Then we don't need to. The group of people were dispirited. After sending away the only son of the registrar, the little girl gently sighed, stood at the entrance, swept the crowd that was still gathered and shouted, My house is full, there's no use for you to stay here. Or do you want me to discuss with the guests who have already checked in and give up the room? The easiest person to talk to is the city master. Do you want me to talk to him? The easiest person to talk to is the city master? Although the Red Scale City could only be regarded as a third-tier city in Bretonia, it was still the city master. Hearing this, the crowd finally began to disperse, apparently realizing that it was meaningless to be entangled. In the carriage, Wang Lu turned to look at Aya. Aya looked at the capable little girl with emotion. She's exactly the same as her ancestors. In those days, the one who received me was also such a little girl. However, there weren't so many guests at that time. Wang Lu also frowned. There are indeed too many people in this town. On the way here, he noticed that the number of tourists in this town was unusually high. Inns, pubs, shops, and other places were crowded with people. The town was filled with a carnival atmosphere, as if they were celebrating a grand festival. What should we do now? Wang Lu pointed at the full inn. I have something here, but I don't know if it can be used or not. Aya softly said, got off the carriage and walked to the entrance of the inn. She arrived in front of the little girl and showed her a badge. The little girl revealed a puzzled look, and then her complexion changed. She looked at Aya up and down in surprise. It was just that, no matter how capable the little girl was, she couldn't see anything from Aya's young face. What's wrong? Has it lost its effect? Aya indifferently asked. No, please come in, please come in. The little girl quickly shook her head, stretched out her hand, and pushed open the door of the inn to let Aya in. A moment later, Aya came out with a face full of emotion, and in her hand was a golden key. The rules of this inn haven't changed, but the current owner is the 6th-generation descendant of that person. That little girl is his daughter. After 100 years, the badge issued by this inn is still valid. The inn has always reserved the best room for the holder of the badge. However, even the owner of the inn doesn't recognize me. After 100 years, Aya, your appearance is still the same. Of course, no one would dare to recognize you. You're not from the stars. Don't you people in the Western continent always grow old very fast? That's right, what's going on in this town? Why are there so many people? Aya said, just now, I heard from that little girl that Golden Flash Town is going to hold a talent selection ceremony. The Dragon City Master will come forward to preside over the selection. Once it is confirmed that the person has the potential to be an outstanding talent, he or she can go to Dragon City with the Master and join the Dragon City Guards. Dragon City is the oldest city in Bretonia. It has been the capital of many dynasties, but later it decayed and degenerated. When I was in power, the capital was moved to another place and Dragon City was severely regulated. I scattered the 8 major legions of Dragon City and selected the elites to form the Dragon City Guards. At that time, it was one of the most elite armies in the country. It has the most complete profession as well as a systematic training method. From the entry level to the high level, the Dragon City Guards have a complete set of training methods. Now that 100 years have passed, the reputation of the Dragon City Guards seems to be higher than before. To be able to join the Dragon City Guards means infinitely better prospects, which attracted many people from the surrounding areas. That's why there are so many people in this town. This ceremony is held every 3 years, and it only started in the last 10 years, so I have never heard of it. So that's how it is. It's somewhat similar to the Immortal Gathering in Lingjian School. Wasn't the Spirit Creek town also such a scene? Aya said, it's just strange. After so many years, Bretonia has experienced earth-shaking changes. I remember that when the country perished, Dragon City was not spared and experienced a big storm. But after 100 years, Dragon City has completely restored its glory. Is it really because this ancient city has an unexpectedly strong vitality? Wang Lu said, therefore, let's just watch it quietly from the sidelines. After a pause, Wang Lu looked at the distant square of Golden Flash Town, where a thorough deployment has begun, ready to welcome the upcoming arrival of the Dragon City Master. I always feel that we will encounter a surprise. The group of people stayed in the inn. As Aya said, the inn left them the most upscale room, the inn owner's own room. During the stay of Aya and the others, the innkeeper's family moved to the villa on the outskirts of the town. During this period, the innkeeper's daughter was in charge of the room service, a 13 or 14 years old delicate and pretty girl. The girl was indeed worthy to be the descendant of an aristocratic family. Although she was young, her professional quality was already quite good. Every day she would tidy up the room of Wang Lu and the others. Every detail revealed her attentiveness and consideration. Moreover, what was rare was that her cooking skill was not bad. Her 3 meals a day were often a pleasant surprise. In Bretonia, which was known as a gourmet land, her standard should be considered as first class. In just one day, Luli regarded her as a confidant. The girl's character was lively, and when she was tidying up the room, her mouth was usually busy. Unlike her ancestors who lived here for generations, she showed great curiosity about the outside world. Whenever she had free time, she would pester Wang Lu and the others to ask about the world outside Golden Flash Town, whether the eastern city-states were as prosperous and developed as rumored, and what was the magical thing about the mysterious eastern continent. Similarly, through the opportunity of chatting, Wang Lu also grasped the outline of what happened in Bretonia in recent years through this girl. In the past, after the fall of Aya's country, Bretonia was once divided into many vassal states. It was just that the tangled warfare didn't last too long. 30 years ago it was suppressed by a foreign force. The foreign force was, of course, Holy Light religion. During the reign of Aya, Bretonia pursued a local religion and was very vigilant against the infiltration of Holy Light religion. However, after the fall of Aya's country, Holy Light religion only took more than 10 years to sweep Bretonia and establish its authority among all the vassal states. Not to mention the drawbacks, it quickly ended the war and brought peace to this place. Today's Bretonia did not have a unified regime. The country was composed of hundreds of city-states, among which the most powerful was Dragon City. In addition to its own city, there were more than 30 cities as its vassal. And the relatively weak ones like Red Scale City were basically not worth mentioning. However, no matter how strong or weak these forces were, they were all under the rule and management of Holy Light religion. Although there was no unified regime, they had a common belief. In this regard, the little girl was quite dissatisfied. I hate those Holy Light religion people. I always feel that they have bad intentions toward the people of Bretonia. For example, this Dragon City Guard selection ceremony seems to be the appearance of the Dragon City Master, but in fact, it's the Holy Light religion's selection. Therefore, I don't envy those who are selected. Hee, don't say these words to anyone. The little girl playfully smiled and stuck out her pink tongue. Wang Lu nodded and softly said, "Is it actually the Holy Light religion's selection?" Chapter 297. Boom boom. Amidst the booming sounds of fireworks and cannons, Gold Flash Town ushered in a new day with noise. At the entrance of the town, the gorgeous fireworks and the golden dawn echoed from afar, injecting infinite vitality into the town with the dazzling brilliance. In the early morning, the town was already a boiling cauldron of voices. The streets, shops, and everywhere were crowded with people. This day was the carnival day in Golden Flash Town that only happened once every 3 years, the Dragon City Guard selection ceremony. As the most powerful city in Bretonia, Dragon City Guard was basically equivalent to the most powerful force in Bretonia. In addition to internal recommendation, there was basically only one way for Dragon City Guard to recruit from the outside. However, it was unknown why such an important ceremony was held in Golden Flash Town instead of Dragon City itself. Perhaps it was because Golden Flash Town was the famous cradle of Bretonia since ancient times. Or perhaps it was because Golden Flash Town's geographical location was superior, accessible in all directions. But in short, for Golden Flash Town, this was a rare opportunity, so naturally, it must be firmly grasped. From early morning, the town entered into a carnival. When the sun gradually rose, the atmosphere slightly cooled down, because the big shots from Dragon City were about to arrive. When it was close to noon, from the distant horizon, a huge shadow rolled down like a dark cloud. The shadow rapidly expanded in people's field of vision, and before long, someone in the town exclaimed, "It's a dragon." It was the symbol of Dragon City, the dragon at the pinnacle of all living creatures. A faint dragon's might had already suppressed them from several miles away, making the townspeople feel a bit short of breath. However, when the dragon flew closer, the dragon's might converged a lot. Because beside the dragon, several platinum lights slowly bloomed, covering the dragon's figure. That rich holy aura made people involuntarily have the urge to prostrate themselves in worship. Hey, sure enough, it's holy light religion. In the inn, Wang Lu coldly smiled. I roughly understand what's going on with this Dragon City Guard selection ceremony. Aya's face was somewhat gloomy. Her green eyes stared straight at the dragon's figure that was sandwiched between several holy lights in the distance, and then gently shook her head. Dragon City shouldn't be like this. A moment later, the dragon arrived at Gold Flash Town. After circling around the town square, it began to slowly descend. As it descended, the dragon's figure rapidly shrank and gradually turned into a human form. It was a dignified middle-aged man who looked to be in his 30s or 40s. He had a tall figure and a mighty aura, causing others to be unable to help but want to submit to him. When he landed, the townspeople closest to the central square even knelt down involuntarily. Jiske, what a powerful aura of dominance. In the distance, Wang Lu was looking at the square from the roof of the inn. Sensing the faint pressure from the middle-aged man, he estimated that the man's level was between the senior rank and the legendary rank, which was around the divinity transformation stage. Such a powerhouse could crush Gold Flash Town to the ground with just a thought. Now he only made a circle of people kneel, which should be the result of extreme restraint. Aya, do you know him? Aya's voice was a bit low. He is the Dragon City Master, Bedivere. After a pause, she continued, he was 100 years ago. But at that time, it was impossible for him to tolerate such an offense. Wang Lu let out an ohm sound to express his understanding. Because right next to the Dragon City Master, there were 3 white-robed holy light priests standing in a circle. It would be too far-fetched to say that they were serving the Dragon City Master, but it was more like monitoring and controlling. However, in fact, the 3 holy light priests were just at the beginning of the senior rank. Even if the 3 of them joined forces, they still couldn't contend against the deity transformation stage powerhouse like the Dragon City Master. Obviously, it was Dragon City Master Bedivere who had abandoned himself. If it was Aya, even if she was only in the King Pill stage, she would still dare to go against 3 deity transformation stage powerhouses. Of course, that was why her country perished. Because of the existence of Bedivere, it was inconvenient for Aya to show herself, so she quietly waited in the inn. Wang Lu was curious about the Dragon City Guard selection ceremony, so he took Lu Li and the others to the square. When they arrived at the square, the selection ceremony had already begun. Bedivere didn't like to waste time. After making a simple opening speech, he reached out and pulled out a high platform from the square and put a crystal ball on it. Next, those who have confidence in themselves can come on the stage and drip their blood on the crystal ball. If the appraisal result is qualified, then you can join the Dragon City Guard. After a simple explanation last night, Bedivere turned around and went down the stage. 2 white-robed priests stayed on the stage to preside over the appraisal, and another priest always followed Bedivere. This was not the first time for the Dragon City Guard selection ceremony, so most of the people in Golden Flash Town were familiar with this procedure. Soon, a young man confidently came on the stage, bit his finger, and dripped his blood on the crystal ball. The crystal ball flashed for a while and finally stopped on the green color. The young man froze for a moment, and then looked at the 2 priests with expectant eyes. Go down? one of the priests coldly said. The young man's face paled. But I have the bloodline. A green excellent level bloodline is not qualified to become a Dragon City guard. Go find a job elsewhere, go down. With that, the priest reached out his hand and pushed forward, and the young man staggered and fell off the stage. The people below began to talk. Alas, even the excellent level bloodline is not qualified to join. The threshold of Dragon City Guard is really high. I'm afraid even the Holy Knights of Holy Light Religion are just SOSO. Yes, in other places, let alone green level bloodline, even white level bloodline is enough for the general city lord to cultivate. And even the worst gray level bloodline, at least it means that you can become a professional. How could you be like this, thrown down like garbage? Yes, in some cities the city lord's guard captain only has excellent level bloodline. Being a Dragon City guard is really not easy. While speaking, another brawny man jumped on the stage to be appraised. That brawny man's whole body exuded an extremely dangerous aura. His strength was quite powerful, and the crystal ball also showed a dark blue color. A near rare level bloodline, not bad. It's a defensive type bloodline that leans towards the shield warrior route, which is even rarer. The white-robed priest nodded. Unfortunately, Dragon City Guard does not lack shield warriors. Go down. That brawny man was inexplicably surprised. Go down? Before he could finish his words, the white-robed priest stretched out his hand and pushed the brawny man down without any ability to resist. After all, although his potential was excellent and his strength was formidable, in front of a high-order profession he was still vulnerable. However, after that brawny man was knocked down from the platform, he was soon surrounded by several luxuriously dressed aristocrats, who tried to draw him into their own force. The selection of Dragon City Guard was very strict. Those who were eliminated were not necessarily weak, but perhaps Dragon City didn't need them. But for other people, those who were eliminated were still an incomparably precious resource. Generally speaking, only bluish-purple bloodline, which is close to epic level bloodline, can join Dragon City Guard. But how could bluish-purple bloodline be so common? I have lived in Golden Flash Town for decades and witnessed every selection ceremony. So far, bluish-purple bloodline has only appeared less than 10 times. Every time it appears, it would greatly shock the people of Dragon City. A gray-haired Golden Flash Town resident sighed with emotion. Excuse me, have there been any Breton Dragon Clan bloodline in these years? A young voice sounded in the old man's ear. The old man turned around and saw a strange face. Hello, I am a scholar from 9 regions. I would like to learn about the customs of this place. The young man faintly smiled. His smile contained a special power, which made the old man unconsciously relax his vigilance. Breton Dragon Clan bloodline? The old man stroked his beard and said with a proud tone, of course, there have been many times. After all, this is Bretonia. This Breton Dragon Clan bloodline, no matter how thin it is at least green, usually blue or even purple. Moreover, its real value is much higher than other bloodlines of the same level. I have experienced 15 selection ceremonies. Every time a Breton Dragon Clan bloodline appears, the Dragon City priest will give them the highest standard of treatment and entertain them alone. That's the pride of our Bretonia people. Entertain them alone? I understand, thank you. One by one the challengers went on stage and came down from the platform. Time quickly slipped away. It seemed like not long, but half a day had passed. The sun had gradually set in the west, and the platform on the square pulled out a long shadow. After half a day, a lot of people with excellent bloodline had been selected. Altogether, there were more than 20 people who met the standard of Dragon City. Among them, there were 3 people from Golden Flash Town, and one of them had Bretonia's Dragon Clan bloodline, which was quite a good result. After all, most of the people in Bretonia, and even outside Bretonia, had heard about the reputation of the selection ceremony. As the sun set, the people in Golden Flash Town gradually dispersed. Most of those who failed in the challenge left with their followers. As for those who came to watch the excitement, they felt that the ceremony was almost over, and there was nothing left to see. Dragon City Master Bedivere quietly waited on the platform for a while. It had been some time since the last challenger left, and there were no newcomers on stage. He turned around and said, "It's almost over, right? Over? With just these people, how could it be over?" Bedivere wrinkled his thick eyebrows. 23 people, is that not enough? The white-robed priest gave him a deep look. You know what I'm talking about. There's already one person, still not enough? Do you think we don't know about your private little tricks? The priest said and then turned his eyes to the area below the platform. There are a lot of people who are supposed to come up here but they haven't. Bedivere coldly snorted. The Dragon City Guard recruitment is not a forced recruitment. Those who don't want to come up, do you think we can force them? The priest said, of course we can't force them but we can tempt them. With that he spread out his palm with a grim smile. Suddenly, a rich fragrance wafted out. Bedivere's body trembled. This is ambergris? Humph, yes, it's the irresistible temptation of Breton Dragon Clan. I knew you wouldn't do things honestly so I deliberately brought it here. I want to see how many people with Dragon Clan bloodlines still haven't shown up. You? You want to fight? Please, with your strength, killing the three of us is indeed easy. Bedivere gritted his teeth but in the end he didn't take any action. The priest then ignited the ambergris with holy light, and the subtle fragrance quickly spread to every corner of Golden Flash Town. A moment later, the priest on the platform was satisfied to see several townspeople who seemed to have lost their wits and came here. He inwardly thought that this priceless treasure was really not wasted. Although it was hard to avoid the suspicion of killing the goose that laid the golden eggs, this time's harvest was so much that it was still a profit. At the same time, Wang Lu, who had lost interest in the selection ceremony, returned to the inn to prepare his meal. However, he was surprised to see that the little girl in the kitchen was suddenly absent-minded. As if she had suffered a blow, her body slightly trembled, and the plate in her hand fell to the ground. Yet she didn't even notice it and lightly walked outside, as if she was possessed by a ghost. Wang Lu felt strange. Nice, where are you going? As soon as his voice fell, Aya, who was next to Wang Lu, suddenly stood up. Chapter 298. The Holy Light Religion Priest stimulated the rare treasure ambergris. The strange fragrance quickly spread to every corner of Golden Flash Town, tempting a specific bloodline. Ambergris was a rare treasure invented by a genius alchemist by chance. According to legend, even the ancient dragons could not resist its temptation. As long as they smelled it, they would salivate and fall head over heels for it. Thus, it had the name ambergris. Legend has it that the purer the Dragon Clan bloodline, the stronger the temptation of ambergris. By taking out this piece of ambergris, the Holy Light Religion Priest basically wanted to catch all the Breton Dragon Clan bloodline in Golden Flash Town. At the same time, in an inn in the town, the fragrance of dinner permeated from the kitchen. Obviously, a sumptuous meal was about to be prepared. However, a moment later Nis, who was in charge of the dinner, gently trembled and then, under the astonished eyes of the crowd, she walked out of the inn absent-mindedly. Behind her, Aya followed her step by step, also absent-mindedly. Tisk, what's wrong with you two? In broad daylight, Wang Lu casually cast out a mind-cleansing spell. Although he was a sword cultivator, spell casting was not his forte, but after cultivating for more than 10 years, he was already close to the King Pill realm. Thus, he could easily cast a simple spell, and the effect was no less than that of an elite from a common sect. However, after casting the mind-cleansing spell, Aya and Nis did not respond at all. Wang Lu was slightly stunned. How could this be? Even though he cast the spell in the Western continent, it was transformed by the law, so he didn't dare to say that the spell's effect was 100% certain, but it should not be completely ineffective. At least it should be effective on Nis. While thinking, Wang Lu got up and pressed Aya's shoulder. Unexpectedly, the girl's body slightly trembled and a tremendous force like a stormy sea came crashing at him, throwing him far away. Don't block the way. Not until Aya's figure disappeared from the end of his field of vision did that impatient voice reach his ears. Is this woman crazy? Wang Lu was shocked and angry at the same time. He slapped the table and shouted at Lu Li and the others, don't just stand there, quickly chase after her. It didn't matter what was wrong with Aya and Nis. The important thing was that the Dragon City Master was outside the town, so Aya could not be seen at this time. Think about it. The Night King who should have died more than 100 years ago suddenly resurrected and reappeared in the land of Bretonia. How would the world react to this? Those who missed the era of the Night King would naturally rejoice, hoping that Aya could lead them to rebuild their country. But from another perspective, what about those who benefited from the collapse of Bretonia? For example, would Bedivere be happy when he saw Aya? For example, in the chaos of war, those who ruled over a city or a place, wouldn't they be worried that Aya would be added to their list after the restoration of their country? In particular, Holy Light Religion, the current de facto master of Bretonia. On one hand, they divided Bretonia, and on the other hand they purified the dragon race bloodline. Their hostility toward Bretonia dragon race was beyond doubt. If they were to see Aya, the former dragon race king, what would happen? She would probably play the role of **** Aya. If he just let Aya run to her death in a few years' time, who knows how many children she would already be the mother of. Well, in theory the soul of the departed was infertile, but this was not the point. Two dead chefs stop. While calling out to Lu Li and Bai Shixian to make their move, Wang Lu's own movement was not slow. Using his imperial wind technique, he flew out of the inn. This place was crowded with people, so he didn't dare to casually use his original magical ability. However, as soon as he walked out of the inn, he couldn't help but secretly curse. Outside the inn there happened to be a large group of people. All of them were defeated in the challenge on the high platform on the square, so they returned in low spirits. He didn't know what these people were thinking, but they actually took a detour to get out of the town. At this time, when they bumped into each other, Wang Lu's momentum suddenly stagnated. And with that, the opportunity slipped away forever. Because when Wang Lu and the others were blocked by the crowd, they had to stop. Aya and Nis, hand in hand, have rounded a corner and went straight to the square. Golden Flash Town was not big. The high platform on the square overlooked all four directions, so the field of vision was excellent. Their figures have already appeared in the line of sight of Bedivere and the others. If they tried to stop them again, they would inevitably be discovered by the other party. Wang Lu reluctantly slowed down his pace and signaled Bai Shixian and Lu Li not to pursue any more. Looking at the receding figure of Aya and Nis, Wang Lu sighed and thought that he could only act according to the circumstances. M4560, and there are two over there. There are actually 8 resuscitation Breton Dragon Clan bloodline. What an unexpected surprise. The priest holding the ambergris beamed with joy. This time, the harvest was so rich that when they returned to Dragon City, they would certainly be rewarded by the Archbishop. Every 3 years they recruited Dragon City guards, and their real purpose was still the Breton Dragon Clan bloodline. Golden Flash Town was blessed by the legendary Dragon Clan, so the probability of giving birth to Dragon Clan bloodline was particularly high. As long as one was a native of Bretonia, after living here for a long time, it was possible to give birth to an awakened Dragon Clan bloodline, which was the real promised land. Therefore, every 3 years Holy Light Religion would recruit Dragon Clan guards in the name of Dragon City and secretly collect Dragon Clan bloodline. For decades the harvest was quite abundant. However, in recent times the harvest had become increasingly scarce. He suspected that Bedivere was the one who set up obstacles and released all kinds of rumors that were not favorable to Holy Light Religion and Dragon City, making those Dragon Clan bloodline unwilling to accept the recruitment. After all, the church's purification of Breton Dragon Clan wasn't done with great fanfare, so some things couldn't be done too blatantly. However, at present, his suspicion of Bedivere was only limited to suspicion, and there was no evidence to prove it. Not to mention with Bedivere's identity, even if there was evidence, it couldn't do anything to him. Therefore he simply bypassed Bedivere and used the ambergris to lure out the Dragon Clan bloodline. In this way, even if Bedivere was unwilling, he could only accept his fate. Very good, very good. Plus the previous one, there are 9 Dragon Clan bloodline. I wonder how many of them are true Dragon Clan bloodline. Breton Dragon Clan bloodline was also divided into grades. The lowest grade was green, the more common was blue, and the best was purple epic. Moreover, the power of the Breton Dragon Clan bloodline was far above its color grade. The higher the bloodline rank of these recruited Dragon Clan bloodline descendants, the greater the credit they would receive. And according to the previous experience, among these 9 people, there should be 1 or 2 purple epic bloodlines. Before long, the first person who was lured by the ambergris climbed the platform. It was a sturdy young man. Many people in Golden Flash Town recognized him. He was the blacksmith's son. This year he was only 13 years old, but his body was more robust than an adult. Moreover, in recent years his body had skyrocketed. Many of the well-informed townspeople suspected that he had awakened some extraordinary bloodline. The blacksmith's son absent-mindedly walked on the platform, and then inexplicably bit his finger and dripped his blood on the crystal ball, which bloomed with dark blue light. Then he was pulled to the side by the priest and stood there in a daze. The second person to come on stage was a delicate and pretty girl. She was the most skillful tailor in the village. With her pair of skillful hands, she could weave exquisite fabrics that were no less than those produced in the eastern 9 regions. At this time she was also attracted by the ambergris and dripped her blood on the crystal ball, which bloomed with almost purple light. Good, close to epic level bloodline. Moreover, its skill-sensitive type quite rare, no less than a real purple epic. This time I've picked up a treasure. The priest snickered and gave the ambergris in his palm to the girl. The girl held the ambergris and seemed to be intoxicated. Before long, several Breton Dragon clan bloodline came on stage to be identified. Without exception, all of them had blue and purple bloodline. There was even one who was infinitely close to epic-level bloodline, which made the several priests smile from ear to ear. At this time, the farthest away girl, Nice, finally came to the front of the stage. She dripped her blood on the crystal ball, which bloomed with a dazzling purple light. Is this a genuine epic bloodline? The three priests were stunned for a moment, and then simultaneously looked at Nice. Breton Dragon clan bloodline was very rare, and its real value was far above ordinary bloodline. Therefore, the conditions for its production were also very harsh. Blue and purple or even infinitely close to purple bloodline were still fine, but a real pure purple bloodline was very rare. Nice pure purple bloodline at least meant that her ancestors were by no means simple. The several priests looked at each other and thought that after this conscription, they must find time to investigate the secret behind this girl. So, is it my turn? The priest's thoughts were interrupted by a clear woman's voice. On the stage, the blonde Aya faintly smiled. After all, she was once the Night King. Although as the former Dragon King, she was the most heavily affected by the ambergris, but in fact, not long after she went out, she had already regained her sobriety. However, at that time, she was already in the sight of Bedivere and the Holy Light priests, so there was no way for her to retreat. Therefore, she simply calmly walked to the stage and looked at Bedivere. Bedivere slightly frowned as if he was lost in thought. However, he didn't seem to recognize the king that he once served. Hearing Aya's question, he just nodded blankly. Drop your blood on it? Aya gently took a breath, and then dropped a drop of blood on her fingertip on the crystal ball. Suddenly, a dazzling purple light flashed on the stage. The three priests were still immersed in the shock brought by Nice, but when they saw Aya's purple light, their eyes widened and they were speechless. Although they were both purple, there was a big difference between the epic-level bloodline. Nice was just an ordinary epic-level bloodline, but the pure purple light that bloomed from Aya meant that she had a high-grade epic bloodline. Even in the era of the Night King, it was enough to rank among the best of the Knights of the Round Table. Of course, they didn't know that this was the result of Aya's deliberate suppression of her bloodline. After all, she was, a spirit of the brave departed. Moreover, after the fall of her country, she lost the most important attribute of the king, so her bloodline level had dropped, which was why it was only purple level. Otherwise, one of the priests swallowed his saliva with difficulty, not knowing what to say. At this time, all he could think about was what kind of reward he would get when he returned to Dragon City. While the priests were silent, Bedivere took a step forward and asked in a sinking voice, "Who exactly are you?" Aya revealed a blank expression. Me. I don't know. I just accompanied my friend to Golden Flash Town to study. I don't know why, but just now, my heart was moved and I wanted to come here to be identified. Who are your father and mother? Galahad? Gawain? Geraint? Bedivere directly interrupted Aya's words. Step by step, he pressed forward, and his eyes hid an astonishing flame. I was tongue-tied. I don't know. They left when I was very young and I never saw them again. Describe their appearance. You should at least remember this. Bedivere was particularly anxious. Aya said, "Yes, my father is, and my mother is." Then Aya vividly described the image of a man and a woman. From time to time, Bedivere asked questions. His questions were so oppressive that the three holy light priests didn't dare to interrupt him. After a long time, Bedivere sighed with a tired face. It turns out to be the descendant of Galahad. No wonder you have such a pure bloodline. Unfortunately, you really shouldn't come here. Aya blinked her eyes. You know my father? But he doesn't seem to be called Galahad. Bedivere sighed again. No need to say any more. That era has passed forever. After that, Bedivere slowly walked down the platform. His back was particularly heavy. Obviously, he didn't want to deal with this matter anymore. The three priests looked at each other in dismay. Descendant of Galahad? One of the most famous knights of the Round Table under the Night King? No wonder she has a pure purple-level bloodline. This time they not only picked up a treasure but also dug up a gold mine. If they followed this girl's background, perhaps they would be able to find a large number of remnants of the Knights of the Round Table. Aya didn't care about the calculations of the three priests. Her attention was always on Bedivere. Judging from his attitude just now, it seemed that a lot of things had happened in the past 100 years. And just at this time, a questioning voice suddenly rang in Aya's ear. Hey, who is Galahad? Wang Lu? Aya was taken aback. She didn't know when, but Wang Lu actually stood on the platform, followed by Bai Shixian, Lu Li, and Quan Zhouhua. Unexpectedly, the whole army had gathered. "What are you guys doing here?" "To collect your corpse." Wang Lu snappily glared at her and then asked, "Who is Galahad?" Aya softly said, "Galahad was a holy knight in the past. He survived the final war, but he has left the Western continent. No one can grasp his whereabouts. I lied that I'm his descendant so no one could trace it down. Bedivere listened to your nonsense? He was your minister in the past, how could he not recognize his own lord?" Aya hesitated for a moment. "I told you before. I didn't shoulder the title of Night King with the image of a woman. My image at that time and now is very different. Moreover, the spirit of the brave departed also has its own special place, so it's normal for Bedivere not to recognize me." "What the? That's possible? Is the lethality of an A-cup really that strong?" Sure enough, the story of Liang Shambua and Zhu Yingtai has its real-life origin. "What are you talking about?" While Wang Lu and Aya were happily chatting, several priests sternly shouted, "Who are you guys? What are you doing on the platform?" Wang Lu smiled. "Of course, we are the talented people who came to join Dragon City Guard. Don't look at our handsome men and pretty women, we are actually the real power. For example, look at me, I have the legendary noble bloodline." While saying that, Wang Lu cut his finger with his fingernail and dropped a drop of blood on the crystal ball. In any case, he couldn't run away, so he might as well go with Aya and sneak into Dragon City Guard first. At present, the bloodline purification of Holy Light religion has not been put on the surface, so there was still room for maneuver. Next, as long as he showed that his noble bloodline was not inferior to Aya's, he should be able to get the attention of Dragon City Guard, and then. While thinking, the crystal ball absorbed the drop of blood and burst into light. A dark and mottled light. Wang Lu was stunned, and so were the several priests on the opposite side. Everyone was stunned. Gray light? On this day, there were no less than 1,000 people who went on stage to be appraised. Their bloodlines were varied, from the pure purple Breton dragon clan bloodline to the mediocre white bloodline. Any kind of bloodline was not rare, but this gray bloodline was really rare. After a long time, a priest suppressed his anger and said, "You, get off the platform." Wang Lu was startled. Get off the platform? Gray, moreover, it's an impure mottled gray. This is the lowest level of garbage bloodline. If you don't get off the platform, do you want us to do it? While saying that, the priest stretched out his hand, ready to use the power of holy light to blast this inexplicable 9 regions bastard off the platform. Wang Lu anxiously said, "There must be some misunderstanding." With that, an immortal method bloomed on his fingertip, trying to emit orange light as a coverage. Damn garbage bloodline? What kind of play is this? Chapter 299. Believe me, there must be a misunderstanding here. In the sincere shout of Wang Lu, the holy light priest angrily waved his palm and, using the holy light to drive an invisible force, slapped him off the high platform. Wang Lu lightly landed on the ground. Facing the complicated eyes from all around him, he calmly sighed and pretended that he didn't see it. In fact, this result was not too unexpected. Indeed, he had the world's top spirit root, void spirit root, and he cultivated the world's #1 defensive method, non-phase method. However, that was the standard of 9 regions. In the Western continent, people simply wouldn't recognize it. Not to mention that the Western continent people cared about the power of their bloodline, which was more related to their inherited ability and had little to do with their own strength. Initially, on the non-phase peak, his master also said that in terms of physical aptitude alone, he could only be regarded as mediocre, and he had to rely on elixirs to gradually improve it. However, the cultivators of 9 regions who cultivated the immortal path didn't attach much importance to the innate aptitude of the body. Later, he cultivated the non-phase sword bone, which greatly improved his body, so the quality of the aptitude was even more irrelevant. However, all of these improvements were only superficial. For example, if at this time Wang Lu gave birth to a child, not to mention inheriting the void spirit root, it would even be difficult for the child to inherit his current powerful body. And this crystal ball test was precisely to trace the origin of the bloodline, to test the quality of a person's inheritance. No matter how great Wang Lu's ability was, he was powerless in this regard. In theory, only when the king pill was completed, the physical body, magical power, primordial spirit, and immortal heart would be further unified, and only then could one essentially change oneself. After the king pill, one could be called a Taoist master because after achieving the king pill, the cultivator would be reborn and henceforth enter a whole new realm. The descendant of the king pill Taoist master would be far above the mortal from birth. Of course, for Wang Lu, achieving the king pill was only a matter of time. However, how could he explain all of this to the crystal ball? After thinking for a moment, Wang Lu looked up at the high platform. At this time, Lu Li and Bai Shixian were somewhat at a loss. Who would have thought that their senior brother Wang Lu would be reduced to a trash bloodline and be driven out of the arena? Wang Lu immediately transmitted his voice through primordial spirit. Don't panic, I went up to confirm that Aya is fine. Now I can find a suitable reason to retreat. That crystal ball is used to test the bloodline of the people of the Western continent, so it is not suitable for us. You guys should also go up and take the test and then come down. Aya can protect herself now, so there's no need for us to get ourselves involved. Let's come back first. Bai Shixian and Lu Li nodded, and then Bai Shixian lowered her hand. A drop of bright red blood dripped from her scallion-like finger, blooming. A deep purple light. This is the impure blood I used to expel the impurities from my body. It's actually of such a high-grade dark purple? Bai Shixian was slightly surprised. It seems that we really can't test the bloodline of the 9 regions. The final conclusion is completely irregular. Senior brother, is this the case? Under the stage, Wang Lu was speechless. Little Bai, you've blinded my dog eyes. Similarly, the 3 holy light religion priests were also blinded. Seeing the purple light that was as pure as Aya's, they felt that their hearts seemed to stop beating. Since when did this epic bloodline become as common as potatoes and tomatoes? From the details, it was extremely compatible with nature. It could be called the child of nature's epic bloodline, and its rarity was no less than Aya's Breton dragon clan bloodline. If those druids saw it, they would probably welcome her back to the endless forest at all costs to worship her as a holy woman. However, before the first wave subsided, another wave arose. Just as Bai Shixian left the crystal ball, Lu Li immediately took over and, in accordance with her senior brother's request, gracefully dripped the blood from her fingertip onto the crystal ball. The next moment, the orange light blinded everyone's eyes. At that moment, time seemed to stand still. Hey, I've never seen this color before. Lu Li curiously looked at the crystal ball and reached out to touch it. With a burst of crackling sound, the crystal ball seemed to be unable to bear the pressure and loudly shattered. But, sorry, I didn't think that this thing can't be touched. Lu Li looked ashamed. Do you want compensation? The several holy light religion priests were horrified. How could they still think about compensation? Just now, that orange light was mostly because the crystal ball had been working continuously for a whole day, so it was overwhelmed and the appraisal result went wrong. However, the bloodline of these 2 9 regions people was undoubtedly an extremely high level of epic bloodline. As for the even higher level of orange legendary bloodline, that was unlikely. After all, how could a mere 9 regions low-level bastard possibly reach the highest level of bloodline? However, in any case, today's harvest was indeed far beyond their imagination. In addition to the 9 Breton Dragon clan bloodline, there were still so many epic bloodline. This time's harvest was comparable to the past 10 Dragon City Guard conscription. Thus, they and the others had made a huge contribution. You guys. The leading holy light religion priest cleared his throat and said, you guys are qualified and can join Dragon City Guard. Lu Li suddenly hesitated. But just now, senior brother said, it's okay, just promise him. Wang Lu's voice came from her primordial spirit. With the current situation, even if you want to leave, you can't. Don't worry, I'll follow you. Let's go to Dragon City together. With that, Wang Lu once again stood on the high platform. The holy light religion priest was focused on Lu Li and Bai Shixian, and his heart was trembling. At this time, seeing that Wang Lu, this bastard bloodline, came to stir up trouble, he immediately became angry. What are you doing here? Wang Lu confidently said, I also want to join Dragon City Guard. With your bastard bloodline? Whimsical. The holy light is benevolent and illuminates all living beings. However, if you insist on acting recklessly and refuse to mend your ways, the holy light will surely punish you severely. The priest sternly threatened. Wang Lu confidently said with a smile, although the level of my bloodline is not high enough, but as a special talent, I can give you a way out. Special talent? Wang Lu said, yes, Dragon City Guard is a powerful military force in Bretonia. Although the number is not large, adding the servant soldiers, there are nearly 10,000 people. Such a huge team, there must be various service talents, right? The priest frowned. Any large organization is indispensable to administrative and logistical support, and I am a superclass administrative and logistical talent. From the grassroots organization construction, system construction, team construction to style construction, I have a set of systematic methods. Although my own fighting power is not high, it can effectively enhance the fighting power of the entire team. The priest stared at him for a long time and then said with a sinking voice, "Dragon City Guard does not need miscellaneous soldiers." "Ha, not miscellaneous soldiers, it's administrative and logistical. Get lost." "Wait a minute, I'm also a superclass technical talent. Even if you discriminate against liberal arts students and despise administrative and logistical, but as an engineering student I can also do it. Whether it's blast furnace iron making, refining gunpowder, or civil engineering, I'm an expert. In addition, I also have some experience in theoretical research such as mathematics. Within 3 seconds I can perform all kinds of square root calculations within 5 digits as easy as turning my hand." "Get lost." The priest has long been impatient. He stretched out his hand of holy light and directly slapped Wang Lu down from the platform. Aya, Lu Li, and Bai Shixin were dumbfounded as they watched Wang Lu fall down from the platform. The 3 holy light priests were somewhat irritated. They stared at Wang Lu, who had a face full of incompetence. They inwardly said that if they were not under the watchful eyes of the public, they would have summoned the holy light's sanction and beheaded this clown in one fell swoop. However, Bedivere was somewhat interested in Wang Lu's argument. Administrative and logistical? That's an interesting talent. Unfortunately, it was only interesting. At this time, his mood was heavy, and all his energy was focused on Aya. He had no interest to continue to delve into the topic of Wang Lu. "Okay, these are the people, we can end it now." Seeing that the sky was already dark, a priest said. At this time, Wang Lu once again climbed the platform and loudly said, "Wait a minute, I still have something to say." The holy light priests simply didn't want to talk nonsense with him. They just raised their hand and blasted out the holy light's punishment. Wang Lu casually sidestepped to avoid the holy strike, and then said, "Don't misunderstand, I just want to ask a question." "Question?" Wang Lu said, "Yes, can't the Dragon City Guard recruit bring a few extra people? I heard that Dragon City Guard is almost lifelong. Once you join, unless you have made a great contribution, you can't quit. Then, on the long road of life, do you want to be alone? Those who have old and young, married and have children after joining Dragon City, do you want to be alone for the rest of your life? After being recruited, can't you bring your relatives and friends?" This question resonated with the more than 20 qualified people. "Yes, can't we just go directly to Dragon City? I have an elderly mother to take care of, so I always wanted to ask if I can take her with me. I can get a lower salary. My girlfriend has always wanted to go to Dragon City, I should be able to take her with me." The 3 holy light priests suddenly had a headache. Bring their relatives? In their dreams. Do they think they are going to Dragon City for a vacation? The more the relatives and friends are fettered, the more difficult it is to fight bravely on the battlefield without fear of death. Moreover, most of these recruited people are just uncultivated, unpolished jade. In the first few years of training, how could they have the time to be intimate with their loved ones? But how could these words be said directly? At this time, Dragon City Master Bedivere said, "You want to bring your family? Sure, as long as you perform enough meritorious deeds for Dragon City. Don't even talk about bringing your family members. Dragon City will help you even if you want anyone to be your family member. As long as you join Dragon City Guard, we will be a big family." But Bedivere looked sideways at Wang Lu. "With your current status, don't even think about your family. Even if it's a big family, the family has its own rules. It's fair to exchange merits for treatment." The blacksmith's son stammered, "But if she has to stay in Dragon City for several years, Bedivere shouted, "If she can't even endure for several years, then she doesn't have to." The young man was awed by the majesty of the Dragon City Master and no longer dared to say anything. "So?" Bedivere looked at Wang Lu. "What do you want to ask?" "I want to ask, does this rule also apply to Breton Dragon Clan's descendants? Can't Dragon Clan's descendants bring their family?" Bedivere's eyes narrowed, thinking, "That's a good question." Dragon Clan's descendants were indeed allowed to bring their relatives, because Holy Light Religion's attitude toward Dragon Clan's descendants was completely different from that of other bloodline holders. The more relatives they brought to Dragon City, the more Breton Dragon Clan's descendants would fall under their control, and the more weaknesses and hostages they would have, which was exactly what Holy Light Religion wanted. "But whose family are you?" Bedivere sneered. "You're a 9 regions person. Do you want to say that you have a blood relationship with Dragon Clan? Besides, even if you really have a relationship, for the sake of fairness, I will not make an exception for her. In this Dragon City Guard conscription, no one is allowed to bring their family to Dragon City." Wang Lu frowned. Not even her family? However, a moment later, an idea flashed through his mind and he laughed. "That's okay because I'm not her family, but her gigolo." Chapter 300. Male, Escort? On the high platform, when Wang Lu proudly announced his identity, the scene fell into a very long silence. Even the Dragon City Master Bedivere revealed an incredulous expression and was tongue-tied. "What did you say?" Wang Lu sneered. "I said that I am the escort of this Galahad descendant. Not only can I help her relieve her physical and psychological pressure, but I also won't bring her mental burden like a family member. Just like Wishful Stick or Mr. Horn, but I can move and talk, and have more complete functions without any side effects. In short, taking me with you has hundreds of benefits and no harm, so you guys have nothing to say, right?" Bedivere was still in a stiff state. Wang Lu reached out his hand to hug Aya. "If I can't bring my family member, that's fine, but can't I even bring my personal belongings? As the personal belongings of the Breton Dragon clan, is there a problem for me to follow my master to Dragon City? If we can't even bring our personal belongings, then are we going to be recruited as Dragon City guards, or are we going to prison? Especially this time, there are many women who are going to be recruited. If you don't allow them to bring their personal belongings, do you want them to enter Dragon City naked? Aren't you guys too wretched?" Wang Lu righteously said, "Therefore, it's logical and natural for me to enter Dragon City." What a glib tongue. Bedivere had never been known for his eloquence. Being continuously questioned by Wang Lu, he simply didn't want to talk to him. If it was a normal day when he encountered someone with a glib tongue like Wang Lu, he simply didn't need to be polite. Just by releasing a bit of his Dragon City master pressure was enough to make the other side piss their pants. However, now he turned his eyes and asked Aya, "What do you say? Do you want to take this person with you?" At this time, Aya was also somewhat stunned. She was still immersed in the shock of being the escort. When she heard Bedivere's question, she fiercely glared at Wang Lu. Just as she was about to open her mouth, she heard Wang Lu's voice from within her primordial spirit. "My sword, you said you want to be my sword. Listen to my instructions. You haven't forgotten, have you?" After a pause, she said, "This is not a joke. You have to agree first and see Bedivere's reaction." Aya took a deep breath and said, "He is right, I want to bring him to Dragon City." Wang Lu immediately added, "Incidentally, we also have a dog." Then he picked up the model dog Quanzhou. Bedivere stared at Aya's green eyes. After a long time, he closed his eyes and turned away. "Do whatever you want." After the selection ceremony of the Dragon City Guards, the number of qualified people reached an unprecedented number of 35. According to the past practice, they should simply pack their luggage and leave Golden Flash Town for Dragon City. However, this time, the mayor of Golden Flash Town seized the opportunity and used all means to make Bedivere and the others stay. "Please stay here for one night no matter what." Since the beginning of the selection ceremony, this is the first time that Gold Flash Town has more than 30 people qualified. This is a great event and we should seriously celebrate it. With that, the mayor fiercely stuffed several mysterious big gift bags into the hands of the three priests. At the same time, because the duration of the ceremony was indeed longer than expected, the sky was already dark when the ceremony ended. The three holy light priests, while collecting the gift bags, discussed for a while, and then agreed to the mayor's invitation. That night, Golden Flash Town held a carnival ceremony, and the 4 people from Dragon City received the warmest hospitality. And the more than 30 selected new Dragon City guards also reveled in the sound of countless blessings until late at night. After that, at the request of Bedivere, they packed their luggage and rested in the town's largest inn for the night, ready to depart the next morning. Although the carnival had consumed a great deal of energy, none of these more than 30 people had the mood to sleep, and they still felt excited. Because they lived in the same place, they gathered together and began to chat. Many of these people were locals of Golden Flash Town, but most of them came from other areas. They chatted about all kinds of things, and even when the sky was about to turn bright, they still felt that it was not enough. "Alas, I don't know what it will be like in Dragon City. I heard that Dragon City guards look glamorous, but their training is very hard. Moreover, they often have actual combat tasks, and the elimination rate is also very high." A teenager from the countryside, who had expectations and worries about the future, could not help but sigh. You don't have to worry too much about this." A teenager from Golden Flash Town grinned and comforted him. "I know a lot about Dragon City guards." The people of Golden Flash Town were well informed, and knew more about the Dragon City guards compared to the people of other places. Dragon City guards do often have actual combat tasks, but basically, every time they go out they would crush the opponent without any suspense. In the entire territory of Bretonia, there is no force that can match Dragon City guards. After all, behind Dragon City is the #1 religion in the continent, Holy Light religion. As long as we, the recruits, pay attention not to show off, generally there won't be any danger. As for elimination? Elimination is elimination, it's actually not a big deal. People who have retired from Dragon City guards are very popular in many places. After all, what you learned in Dragon City is the real thing. The countryside teenager curiously asked, "If I'm eliminated, won't my power be taken back?" Where did you hear that rumor? How to take back power? Don't tell me that every time someone is eliminated, they have to be beaten into a cripple before they go out? As long as you sign a soul contract and don't leak out Dragon City's method, the skill that you learn is your own, it doesn't matter. The well-informed teenager laughed. Therefore, joining Dragon City guards, in addition to suffering a bit, it's basically a big profit. You can't find all kinds of secret books in Dragon City and other places. Really? Really? The countryside teenager became more and more curious. Is Dragon City's method very powerful? How powerful is it? As long as you practice step by step, you have the hope to become a high-order profession. How powerful do you think it is? The eyes of the Golden Flash Town teenager flickered. There is a world of difference between a profession and an ordinary person. When you become a high-order profession, you will be treated courteously in any place in the continent. Whether it's to serve a great noble or to set up your own adventure team, your status is extraordinary. For example, look at this Golden Flash Town. It's already one of the few towns in Bretonia, but even the mayor's status is almost the same as a high-order profession. If it's in a small place like yours, 10 towns added up is almost equal to a high-order profession. 10 towns added up? However, it is extremely difficult to promote to a high-order profession. I don't know how many professions there will be a high-order profession. In addition to the requirement of having a high-level bloodline, the cultivation method must not be bad, which is actually very difficult. There were countless bloodlines on the continent, and each of them had their own unique mysteries. Only by using corresponding cultivation techniques could they be continuously nurtured and unleashed even stronger divine abilities. Otherwise, it would be twice the effort for half the result. Dragon City has collected most of the cultivation methods in Bretonia, that's why it's so powerful. Almost any bloodline can find the corresponding cultivation method and dig out its own potential to the limit. And since we have passed the selection of Dragon City guards, at least our potential is not a problem. As long as we cultivate well, there is hope. Only hope? Nonsense, what do you think a high-order profession is? Among the thousands of Dragon City guards, 60 to 70 high-order professions are already not bad. But at least the road is unimpeded. In other places, no matter how hard you try, you can't promote to a high-order profession. Dragon City guards at least have hope. The countryside teenager was lost in thought for a moment and suddenly asked, "What about the Breton Dragon clan?" Speaking of this, the Golden Flash Town teenager looked envious. They are the real heaven's proud sons and daughters. It is said that every qualified Breton Dragon clan bloodline has at least a 50% chance to become a high-order profession. Today, those with blue and purple bloodline have a 100% chance to become a high-order profession. Moreover, they are the strongest among the high-order professions. The Dragon Clan bloodline is too powerful, other people simply cannot compare to them. After a pause, the Golden Flash Town teenager was confused. But, I heard that the selected Dragon Clan bloodline seems to be managed separately, isolated from the rest of the world. Previously, there were several Dragon Clan bloodline in this town who joined Dragon City, but after that, I haven't seen them again. The countryside teenager was a bit scared. Don't tell me, something happened? Tieske, what are you thinking? The Dragon City Lord is a powerful Dragon Clan bloodline, what could happen to him? They should be forming a secret team to carry out some secret actions. In short, they are not the same kind of people as us. Don't you see that they are now living alone? At the same time, the Dragon Clan bloodline, who were not the same kind of people as the others, were also chatting in high spirits. Compared to other qualified Dragon City guards, their happiness was undoubtedly stronger. Because as the Dragon Clan bloodline, the legendary status of Dragon City guards was far higher than the others. The stout blacksmith's son said, "Nis, you really hide yourself deep enough. You usually don't show yourself, but you're actually a Dragon Clan bloodline. Moreover, you're a high-level Dragon Clan bloodline that's really amazing." This time, almost all of the Dragon Clan bloodline who were recruited by Holy Light religion came from Golden Flash Town. They were also familiar with each other, so they actually chatted happily. Nis herself, however, was dispirited. What's so great about it? I don't want to be a Dragon City guard, I'm satisfied with just running my family's inn. I really don't know what possessed me to muddle-headedly run to the recruitment. My family is very worried about me. Hateful just now, no matter what I said to those dead fakes, it's useless. They even said that once you're on the stage you have to accept the arrangement of Dragon City, otherwise, it's contempt of majesty. How could their family's majesty be so worthless? Upon hearing what Nis said, the others were somewhat at a loss for words. To be selected by Dragon City as a Dragon City guard, henceforth they would have a boundless future. How could they avoid it when it came to her? Seeing that Nis was in a low mood, the others comforted her with a few words, and then led the topic to another place. By the way, Nis, who are those outsiders? They seem to be staying in your inn. The tailor's daughter curiously pointed at Aya and Wang Lu in the corner of the room. Nis shrugged. I don't know, I only know that they're carrying our family's ancestral emblem. According to our ancestral teachings, when we see that emblem, we must treat them with the most honorable courtesy. Presumably, they're the descendants of people who migrated from Golden Flash Town a long time ago. As for the several people who came with her, they look like ordinary Eastern loitering scholars. It's just that I didn't expect them to have epic-level blood. Oh, except for that man. At the mention of Wang Lu, the atmosphere in the room changed again. That horrifying theory of being a gigolo was still shocking to them. As one of the people involved in the incident, Wang Lu and Aya were talking in a soft voice. Hey, don't always put on that serious face. It's rare that the plan went so smoothly, so why not be happy? Aya coldly said, Don't talk to me, you pervert. *T, is this how you treat your senior brother who has to endure humiliation? I don't talk to gigolo, thank you. Then you're just treating me as a tool to vent your lust? Hey, in that situation what else can I do? If I can't seize the opportunity to join Dragon City Guard and go with you, do you want me to sneak into Dragon City alone? I'm a defensive fighter, not a lurker. Aya said, but your argument is too absurd, too shameless. Wang Lu coldly humphed. If I didn't do that, would Bedivere let me go? It's strange that Bedivere would actually let you in? Aya was somewhat incredulous. He's never one to succumb to absurd remarks. He's not good with words, so there's no need to say anything more. But this time he actually let you in. Wang Lu said, the reason is very simple, he was moved by my sincerity. You see, isn't the spirit of chivalry very particular about loyalty? I, the gigolo, am so loyal and enthusiastic to your majesty the queen that he was moved, so he made an exception and let me join. If not, Wang Lu lightly said, then Bedivere has other plans. In his view, introducing us as variables is more beneficial to him. I was stunned. More beneficial? Of course, there's the last possibility. What? He likes me. Chapter 301. At noon the next day, Wang Lu and the others arrived at Dragon City. Thousands of miles away, they arrived in the blink of an eye. When they set off from Golden Flash Town, Dragon City Master Bedivere transformed into a more than 100 meters long dragon. He carried everyone on his back, soared into the sky, and then led them forward with the speed of a dragon. Taking the famous Dragon City Master of the Western Continent as a mount, this treatment was simply inconceivable. On the dragon's back, the hearts of these newly recruited Dragon City guards thumped all the way. They didn't dare to breathe loudly, only feeling that they were in a dream. However, in fact, Bedivere himself didn't care about this at all. He just thought that this was faster. The Dragon City Guard selection ceremony in Golden Flash Town was not what he wanted. From the beginning to the end it made him feel sick. Therefore it was better to end this quickly than anything else. And the three holy light priests naturally didn't consider maintaining Bedivere's face. Him being a mount for a group of recruits was also his business. These priests couldn't wait to go back and accept the reward. When the group of people slowly descended with Bedivere, they all felt a soul-stirring pressure floating in their hearts. It was the faint pressure of the whole city. Dragon City was named after the dragon, and for thousands of years, it had too much connection with the dragon race. Today the whole land was filled with the aura of the dragon race. Dragon City was the most magnificent city in Bretonia, the former capital of the Night King era. But in terms of strength it was not as good as this ancient city. Looking at it from the sky, most of the newcomers were just full of joy and excitement. However, for those who were interested, this was a rare opportunity to look at the overall situation. The strong are as many as trees in a forest, this Dragon City. Wang Lu gently narrowed his eyes. In his perception, there were more than 50 high-order professions, and there were even more middle-order professions. This didn't include the number of strong people who were used to hiding their aura. In 9 regions only high-ranked sects could compare with such a force. Aya said, yes, and it's obviously a mix of many forces. Dragon City guards, Holy Light Religion, and other adventurers have gathered here. The number is very large. After more than 100 years, this city is bigger than ever, even comparable to my Knights of the Round Table. When Aya's army was at its peak, there were no more than 100 high-order professions under her command. Of course, this did not mean that there were only a few high-order professions in the vast land of Bretonia. It was just that most of the strong were accustomed to freedom and would not directly obey the dispatch of the Night King. The so-called Night King, to put it simply, was only the strongest force in the land of Bretonia, and not the sole hegemon of the world. But now, the scale of Dragon City was comparable to the Night King's Knights of the Round Table. Seeing this, Aya's heart was filled with emotion. Unfortunately, although the scale is large, it is like scattered sand. Aya lightly said, the power of this city has not been integrated. That's why we have the opportunity to act. 999 roses as well as your road to restoring your country start here. The new batch of Dragon City guards soon began their new life in Dragon City. After the more than 30 people arrived, they immediately gathered in the barracks square. Under the watchful eyes of thousands of Dragon City guards, they swore allegiance to Dragon City Master Bedivere and Dragon City Archbishop Rowan, and accepted the blessing. The content of the oath was not harsh, mainly that they must not divulge the method of Dragon City, must not harm the interest of Dragon City, and so on. The binding force of the oath was not strong. In this regard, Aya found it very strange because in her time Dragon City guards as the core legion of the kingdom were notoriously strict in management. How come today, when Dragon City guards had become Bedivere's private army, the management was relaxed instead? According to this degree of binding force, it was actually very difficult to restrict Dragon City's method from divulging, and the ability to mobilize Dragon City guards was also limited. It was no wonder that Dragon City was in a state of disunity. However, at this time, the loosening of the oath was actually a good thing so that when the flag of rebellion was raised later, breaking the oath would become a problem. The oath-taking ceremony was carried out uniformly, and no one was an exception, including Wang Lu. Although in Golden Flash Town he joined as a gigolo, but now that he was in Dragon City, naturally they would not take him seriously. They only regarded him as an ordinary Dragon City guard and allowed him to participate in the oath-taking ceremony. After the oath-taking ceremony, the newcomers, under the leadership of several Dragon City Guard officers, went to the barracks to settle down. Dragon City guards received strict military management, but their personal living conditions were quite good. The barracks area where more than 2,000 Dragon City guards lived occupied a quarter of the land of Dragon City. Each Dragon City guard had an independent living space, which, according to their rank and strength, ranged from a simple single-room apartment to a courtyard villa. Clothing, food, housing, and transportation were all well guaranteed. Among them, the Breton Dragon clan bloodline had another preferential treatment. They lived in a villa area alone, and as a newcomer, they enjoyed the treatment of a senior guard. After entering the villa area, everyone settled down and then familiarized themselves with the environment under the guidance of the veterans. And in the process there was an amazing discovery. Also living in the villa area, there were many Dragon clan bloodline that were selected in the previous selection ceremony. Because most of them came from Golden Flash Town, they soon recognized each other and exchanged greetings. Wang Lu and Aya were surprised. Holy Light Religion had purified the Breton Dragon clan bloodline. This was what they heard from the Holy Robe Priest in the King's treasure house. Later, what they saw in Golden Flash Town seemed to confirm this point. Holy Light Religion gathered the Dragon clan bloodline in the name of Dragon City, and then sent them to Dragon City to be purified. Now it seemed that the first few steps were in place, but after the Dragon clan entered Dragon City, they seemed to be alive and kicking. They didn't lose their arms or legs and there was no large-scale blood sacrifice. While the people from Golden Flash Town were exchanging greetings, Wang Lu and Aya quietly listened. They learned that things were indeed very different from what they expected. The dragon descendants living in this villa area had joined the Dragon City Guards as early as 20 years ago. During this period they cultivated cultivation methods, participated in battles and even married and had children. But no one had ever heard of any bloodline purification. As for the Dragon clan who joined earlier, legend has it that some of them have entered the upper echelons of Dragon City, and some chose to retire and travel around the continent. But in short, they had never heard of any adverse action from Holy Light Religion against these people. On the contrary, these people's view of Holy Light Religion was generally positive. Was it that these people were too ill-informed? Or had they colluded with Holy Light religion to conceal the information? Or was the manager of the king's treasure house just talking nonsense? For the time being it was unknown. In short, it's still valuable to personally enter Dragon City. I pondered for a moment. In any case we have time, so let's calm down and watch quietly. The truth will eventually surface. Wang Lu smiled. It doesn't matter, I'm not in a hurry. For the next 3 months, Wang Lu and the others lived in Dragon City in an orderly manner. As a new Dragon City guard, according to the plan, they must receive strict training in Dragon City in the first few years. Regardless of whether the newcomers have a certain foundation before this, after joining Dragon City, they must start from the beginning. Because in Dragon City's view, the so-called foundation of the newcomers was full of flaws, so it was better to cut it down and retrain. Of course, if they really have amazing skills such as when they joined they were already high-order professions, which was naturally different. However, Wang Lu and the others have concealed their strength. At most, they behaved like a beginner profession. Although they were not pure newcomers, they were not worthy of special attention. They also had to start from the beginning. The basic training level of Dragon City Guard was very high, second to none in the entire Western continent. In addition to the routine physical training and other basic training, Dragon City soon distributed different methods to each person according to their situation. Wang Lu and the others naturally did not need these methods to practice, but they could refer to the theoretical methods. Before achieving the King Pill, Wang Lu intended to enrich his knowledge and widely absorb the essence of various knowledge. The power system of the Western continent was very different from that of the 9 regions, which was quite wonderful and could not be underestimated. In these 3 months, Wang Lu had nothing to do, so he wandered around the barracks area, exchanging methods with people everywhere. These methods that were distributed by Dragon City had no confidentiality requirement, and mutual borrowing was not prohibited. Therefore, Wang Lu quickly collected a large number of methods and carefully studied them. In these 3 months, although it was not enough for him to have any essential change in his strength, it undoubtedly greatly enriched his knowledge, which laid a good foundation for the great unification of the King Pill in the future. In addition, after 3 months, this group of newcomers successfully stimulated the power of their bloodline, became professions and rapidly strengthened their strength. In these 3 months, the newcomers rapidly grew from robust blacksmiths, dexterous tailors and clever innkeeper ladies to powerful fighters who could fight against 10 or even more. Among them, the best have successfully manifested the characteristics of the dragon race. They have the ability to protect themselves with dragon scales and other abilities, so it was not a problem for them to fight against 100 people alone. In this regard, Wang Lu was simply filled with emotion. The same cultivation, the same starting point of ordinary people, how could the cultivation speed of the Western continent be so much faster than that of the 9 regions? From the time he entered the Spirit Sword Mountain to the time when he had the fighting power to fight against 100 people, it took him at least 2 years. During this period he also spent a huge amount of resources in the medicinal bath, changing his meridians and washing his marrow. Of course, the cultivation speed of the Lingjian school was the slowest among the 5 uniques. However, even the fastest one, the Royal Soldier sect, would not let people be reborn in just 3 months. That's normal. The concept of time in the Western continent and 9 regions is different. In this regard, Aya, who had a lot of knowledge, explained, the strengthening speed of the Western continent profession is obviously faster than the cultivators of 9 regions, but our lifespan is also much shorter than yours. For example, your Taoist Master King Pill has a lifespan of 700 to 800 years, but the corresponding high-order professions on our side generally only have a lifespan of 150 to 200 years. According to the cultivation speed of the people of 9 regions, I'm afraid their lifespan would be exhausted before they could reach high-order professions. Wang Lu was quite curious. But I think Bedivere is very long-lived. He was your loyal lackey more than 100 years ago, and now he's still alive and kicking. The dragon race bloodline has a long lifespan, which is also the most hated point of us. When it comes to power and fighting ability, there are many bloodlines in the continent that are not inferior to the dragon race bloodline. However, when it comes to extending lifespan, few can compare with the dragon race. However, even Bedivere, who can be regarded as a deity stage powerhouse in your 9 regions, should have a lifespan of more than 2,000 years, but in fact he can only live for 1,000 years. Unless he transforms his own life form into a lich or other undead creature, or like me now. But these are not the right way. Wang Lu gently nodded. The faster you get stronger, the faster you die? That's interesting. Aya casually said, perhaps it's related to our ecological environment. Since the decline of the Golden Dynasty, the Western continent has always been at war, and the war is much more frequent than in your 9 regions. Therefore, under this fast-paced pressure we have to become stronger faster because there's not enough time for us to grow slowly. But it's actually wrong for you to sigh at the fast progress of the newcomers. Aya said and then slightly frowned. The progress of the newcomers is actually not fast at all. In the early stage of the Breton dragon race bloodline, the progress is very fast, far more than what it is now. In the past few months, the cultivation method that everyone has been practicing is actually an inferior method. I thought that in order to progress step by step, so we started from a simple beginning. But now, it seems like Bedivere deliberately gave us an inferior method to perfunctory us. After a pause, Aya continued, moreover, I've been in contact with several veterans. Although their strength can't be said to be weak, it's completely not up to the level that they should be. Among them, the oldest one has joined for more than 20 years, yet he has just broken through to the middle order profession. In my time, it's not unusual for talented dragon descendants like them to advance to high order profession. Wang Lu said, do you suspect that Dragon City is deliberately suppressing the strength of the dragon descendants? Yes, Bedivere is an excellent commander, so he doesn't know how to train his subordinates. In this situation I can only think that he did it intentionally. Aya said, at present I still can't figure out his reason. However, I can try to make the situation change a little bit and see his reaction. Wang Lu gawked for a moment. Do you want to run naked? Chapter 302. Aya's so-called change was to break Bedivere's suppression of the dragon descendants. Most of the methods that he issued were simplified and degraded versions, so the missing parts were made up by Aya. As the former Dragon King of Breton Dragon Clan, Aya's knowledge and understanding of Dragon Clan's bloodline was far above that of other people. Therefore, it was actually very easy for her to perfect an ancient method. Therefore, in the next month, she took the opportunity to communicate with other dragon descendants to indirectly enlighten them, letting them realize the defects of their own methods, and then supplement and improve them. This process was not too obvious, but the effect was soon reflected. The new batch of Dragon City guards had a total of 36 people, including Wang Lu, of which 9 were dragon descendants and 27 were of other bloodline. In the first 3 months, the gap between the two sides was not big, with the dragon descendants slightly ahead. However, in the next month, the progress of the dragon descendants gradually left the others behind, and the gap was getting bigger and bigger. If the performance of the newcomers was due to various accidental factors, then the breakthrough of some veterans was particularly eye-catching. A Dragon City guard who joined Dragon City 21 years ago and had a blue-purple rank bloodline suddenly broke through the bottleneck that had shackled him for many years 3 days ago and stepped into the threshold of high-order profession, which caused a lot of sensation. High-order profession, no matter where, was a very scarce resource. Dragon City was full of powerful people, but even if all the neutral forces were included, the real high-order profession was less than 200 people. And among the Dragon City guards, there were only 60 to 70 people. Adding one more person was not a trivial matter. Moreover, the real strength of the Breton Dragon clan's bloodline was often higher than the same level profession. After the breakthrough, this veteran was actually not inferior to the common high-order profession, and could be classified as a first-class powerhouse among the Dragon City guards. For this reason, Dragon City specially held a small celebration. Dragon City Master Bedivere personally came out to reward him and had a long talk with the veteran, inquiring about his well-being. On the second day of the celebration, Bedivere suddenly summoned Aya. In this regard, Aya was not surprised. This Dragon City had been managed by Bedivere for hundreds of years. Even if it was in a state of disunity, his control was still absolute. In this city, it was not easy to hide anything from his eyes and ears. In fact, Aya wanted to see Bedivere's reaction, so she took the initiative to change the situation. Upon hearing Bedivere's summon, she did not hesitate to agree. All right, I'll be right there. Yeah, me too. The Dragon City guard who came to summon Aya was startled. Looking at the volunteering Wang Lu in front of him, he said, Sir City Lord only summoned Aya. Wang Lu said, I know, but I'm Aya's personal property, not a person. Personal belongings? The Dragon City guard was stunned. What nonsense are you talking about? How is it nonsense? Who made the rule that personal items had to be cold, unmoving, dead objects? Women love men like me who are warm, powerful, and full of power. You're not a woman, so you don't understand the beauty of it. You? The Dragon City guard felt that he could not keep up with this train of thought. Moreover, you should also know how I joined the Dragon City guards. my relationship with Aya has even been recognized by the city lord, so he can rest assured and let me go with her. If anything happens, Aya will take responsibility. Aya, hey? The Dragon City guard considered it for a moment, and then finally took Wang Lu back to the city lord's mansion. Bedivere lived in a castle in the barracks area of Dragon City. Although it was located in the center of the barracks area, it seemed to be isolated from the rest of the world. In such a big castle there were only a few guards. The Dragon City guard took Wang Lu and Aya to the castle gate and then stopped, signaling them to enter on their own. The castle gate was open, revealing a gloomy and cold atmosphere inside. The erratic candlelight reflected the gloomy and terrifying atmosphere in the hall. Aya and Wang Lu walked into the castle, and then the gate slowly closed behind them. The hall was empty. In the middle of the hall, there was a red carpet that went straight ahead, and then divided into two sides winding to the second floor. At the entrance of the staircase in front of the hall, there was a huge portrait nailed. The painting depicted a young man with an unusually sharp gaze. He had a head of light golden short hair and eyes as blue as the sky. He was fully armed with a shiny armor and a gorgeous golden sword on his waist. A thick crimson cloak was wrapped behind him, giving him an awe-inspiring appearance. Although it was just a portrait, but facing the person in the painting, Wang Lu felt as if he was facing a high and mighty king, a true king that was above all professions and cultivators. His heart couldn't help but want to surrender. Tsk, what a powerful king aura. Is this person called Long Outyin? With a somewhat strange look, Aya tilted her head and looked at Wang Lu, but she didn't speak. Hanging in the middle of the hall, could it be that he's Bedivere's ancestor? But it looks so different from him, like they're two different species. Aya couldn't help but correct him. No, actually he is. Before her voice fell, Bedivere's voice came from the other end of the hall. He is the greatest king in the land of Bretonia, the Night King with all the best character and the noblest bloodline. In this gloomy atmosphere of the castle hall, Bedivere appeared on the second floor like a ghost. Come up, I'll wait for you in the study room. Then he turned around and left. Wang Lu was still shocked. He pointed his finger at the portrait in front of him and said through primordial spirit, "That's you?" Aya helplessly said, "Yes, it's me. But that's a man. As I said, when I was the Night King, I never appeared as a woman. In people's eyes, the Night King is a tall, dignified and imposing monarch, not a young girl." Wang Lu was interested. "How did you do it?" Even if it's an illusion, in those days there were as many powerful subordinates as the clouds, so no one could see it? It's not an illusion but a real physical change, so no one could see it. This is actually not difficult to understand, right? Since I'm a dragon descendant, I can incarnate into a dragon and become a completely different species, so how could I not achieve this degree of physical change? No, physical change is indeed not difficult. What's difficult is the psychological change. If you put a female soul in a male's body, it's nothing more than a sissy and vice versa. But you're completely different. Wang Lu couldn't help but admire her. You've been ruling the world for decades without revealing any flaws, and then restored your real body like a lady of noble birth, always behaving appropriately. This transformation is smooth and without any hindrance. Aya, you seem to have reached the supreme state of organic body and inorganic heart, which is much more abnormal than I thought. You're the abnormal one? Haha, then do you think Bedivere has seen through your identity? It's hard to say. We'll know when we meet later. While talking, the two of them went to the second floor and walked along the red carpet to Bedivere's study room. In Bedivere's study room, there were hundreds of rows of bookshelves, which were filled with all kinds of books. From the corner of his eyes, Wang Lu found that most of them were history books. Moreover, they were the records of the recent history, the history of the Night King. Bedivere himself sat behind the desk. Seeing the two of them come in, he gently nodded to signal them to sit down, and then went straight to the point. I heard that for the past month, you've been giving pointers to the dragon descendants on their shortcomings in cultivation. Phoenix was able to break through the bottleneck because of the inspiration you gave him. When I asked him, he thanked you profusely. Aya didn't try to cover it up and directly said, "Yes, I found that there are flaws in the dragon descendants' cultivation method, so I tried to point them out." Bedivere said, "Yes, that's right. But to give targeted advice for dozens of different methods is not something that an ordinary person can do. How did you do it?" Aya said, "When I was very young, before my parents left me, they told me a lot of things." It's a family heirloom?" Bedivere nodded. "Galahad is a holy knight, and one of the most powerful knights of the Round Table. Thus, it's reasonable for his descendants to have such knowledge. But, In my opinion, compared to Galahad, you're more like another old friend. Aya gently tilted her head. Old friend? The same erudite and knowledgeable, the same peerless intelligence. At a young age he stood above many of the old antiques and eventually even ruled the world. While speaking, Bedivere's eyes became sharper and sharper, and the pressure of a high-order dragon descendant diffused out. The sense of oppression became more and more intense. I still remember that with his peerless talent, he improved the methods of many powerful knights. Those powerful knights were all heroes, and some of them were even more powerful than him. However, when he spoke, everyone could only listen and obey. It's very similar to the scene of you giving pointers to many dragon descendants this month. Hearing this, the pressure became stronger and stronger, as if at any time, it would explode and hurt people. Wang Lu's complexion remained unchanged, but his non-phase immortal heart was activated. Aya, on the other hand, returned the same fierce gaze and didn't retreat even half a step. However, just as the situation was about to erupt, Bedivere suddenly sighed and shook his head. Unfortunately, you can't be him. Seeing the unconcealable disappointment in Bedivere's eyes, Aya couldn't help but ask, why? Because you're a woman. What? Bedivere said, he is the king of the world, the noblest and proudest man in the world. No matter what happens, no matter what tribulations he experiences, it's impossible for him to let himself become a woman. That is an absolutely intolerable shame for a knight. So, although you look like him, you can't be him. At that time, Wang Lu felt that his breathing was interrupted. He had to use his non-phase sword chi to injure himself inside his jade mansion, and then held back his laughter. Aya, you also have this day. Aya, on the other hand, was dumbstruck, her sharp gaze completely sluggish. Bedivere was once a loyal and upright knight. Unexpectedly, after more than 100 years, his brain still couldn't turn. Galahad probably trained you to be like this out of nostalgia. Unfortunately, it's specious. How could a young girl shoulder the burden of a king? Aya's face gradually turned red. Of course, it was not because of shyness but because of anger. Bedivere was truly sorrowful. When I saw you in Golden Flash Town, your familiar temperament made me fall into a trance. Later on, I indulged you to bring that inexplicable man into Dragon City, which was also out of nostalgia for the past. However, seeing you again today, I finally realized that the past should be the past. A real knight can't indulge in the illusion of history. After a pause, he said, perhaps after a while, I should replace that painting. With that, Bedivere sighed. Back to the topic. Today I called you here to tell you one thing. You should stop giving pointers to the dragon descendants. Aya asked, what's the reason? Bedivere asked back, have you ever raised an animal? Animal? If you haven't, then go to the logistics area of the barracks and have a look. Bedivere said and then lowered his eyes. Now is not the time when the Breton dragon clan ruled the world, do you understand? Chapter 303. What a reversal of image. Walking out of the castle, Wang Lu sighed with emotion. From the fallen city master who colluded with holy light religion to the late hero who endured humiliation to prop up the sky for the dragon descendants, Bedivere is really a man. In the last dialogue in the study room, Bedivere's hint was obvious enough. Suppressing the strength of the dragon descendants was a last resort, because when the dragon descendants were strong enough, they would be harvested. The Dragon City Guard selection ceremony in Golden Flash Town had a history of more than 40 years, but now the oldest dragon guard in Dragon City was only 21 years old. Where were the dragon descendants in front of him? Although there were a lot of rumors such as retiring, joining the secret forces, but who had seen it? The so-called purification of holy light religion was probably aimed at those mature dragon descendants. Once they advanced to high-order profession, it would be the time for holy light religion to come and harvest them. Speaking of which, Aya closed her eyes and recalled, recently, I have indeed heard people say that in the land of Bretonia, there hasn't been a new high-order dragon clan descendant for a long time. The so-called purification is really a breeding and harvesting game. Wang Lu repeatedly clicked his tongue. That's really ruthless holy light religion. Aya suppressed her anger. I swear they must pay the price. While speaking, an astonishing momentum was about to overflow. Wang Lu reached out and patted her on the shoulder. Don't be impulsive, you're not the mighty and invincible Night King. Do you want to be invincible here, 1 against 10,000, and directly wipe out the entire holy light religion army? If you're discovered, not everyone is as blind as Bedivere and can't recognize you. Yes, I understand. Aya quickly regained her calm. But now I'm very curious, Bedivere has never done things with his hands and feet tied. Encountering an enemy like Holy Light Religion, he would rather die with his life intact. Wang Lu said, obviously someone has grasped his weak point. For example, does he have a wife and children or something? I was startled. I've never heard of this. In those days he was also a loner. Wang Lu thought for a moment. Based on your understanding of him, is he the kind of person who would rather masturbate for the rest of his life than find a woman? That's not it. It's just that she has always followed me to battle all over the place and has never had the chance to get to know and fall in love with someone. That's right. Wang Lu said, it's been more than 100 years and the cycad tree has bloomed several times. It's not unusual for him to meet a confidant, and then Holy Light Religion would use that confidant to control him and force him to submit. But we've never heard of him having such a woman in Dragon City. Wang Lu sneered, obviously he can't see the light of day. For example, if the other party is under the age of 14, would he dare to let you know? Nonsense. Bedivere is not that kind of person. Childish. What do you know? The more an old man like Bedivere, who has experienced countless hardships but has never been in love, the easier it is for him to regard a pure and innocent little girl as his fire of life, the light of desire, his sin and his soul. Your fallacious reasoning and heresy actually exudes the aura of literature. In short, I think this is a breakthrough direction. If we can deal with Bedivere, it's tantamount to us getting half of Dragon City, which is an unparalleled help. In the next few days I will seriously investigate this matter, so you just have to wait for the result. There's no wall in the world that doesn't have a crack. As long as you seriously investigate anything, you can always find some clues. In the next 3 days Wang Lu began to wander around Dragon City. He even occasionally slipped out of the military camp area and inquired about the news in the city's commercial area, noble area, and other places. If this was the Dragon City in Aya's era, where the strictest management was implemented, not only would Wang Lu's behavior not get any news, he would instead be strictly controlled and punished. However, today's Dragon City, as Aya said, had gradually fallen into a state of disunity, and the management was actually a lot lax. Now that he thought about it, this should also be Bedivere's intention. He casually spread the Dragon Descendants method without strict management. He deliberately let these methods spread outside, hoping that the hidden Dragon Descendants in Bretonia could obtain them and then devote themselves to cultivation, leaving behind the kindling for the Bretonia Dragon clan. And this painstaking effort has now left enough room for Wang Lu to move. 3 days later he got the news he wanted. I found it. After returning to his residence, he looked at Aya with a strange smile. Aya was having a sword fight with Lu Li in the courtyard. Seeing Wang Lu's smile, she was somewhat creeped out. Naturally, she couldn't continue the fight and quickly withdrew her sword. What did you find? While speaking, her heart was filled with an ominous premonition. Wang Lu laughed. Do you remember my initial guess? Aya couldn't believe it. Is this really a little girl? It's worse than a little girl, Wang Lu said, pulled out a stack of portraits from his pocket, and then sent them to Aya. In the portrait, a woman with a tranquil appearance was kneeling in front of the statue of God, sincerely praying. She was wearing a pure white Holy Light Religion priest robe. Aya immediately understood. He actually married a priest of Holy Light Religion? Humph, moreover, it's the famous holy woman Marina of Dragon City. Moreover, it's more than that. Wang Lu said and then opened the top few portraits. In the last few portraits there was a picture of a childish little girl. Her eyebrows were 50 to 60% similar to Marina, and she was also wearing the Holy Light Religion white robe. Do you see that? A family full of martyrs. Wang Lu was full of sarcasm. The wife is the holy woman, the daughter is the candidate holy woman, and he himself is a loyal lackey of Holy Light Religion. No wonder his hands and feet are tied. Aya looked at the portrait in disbelief. Are you sure? Of course, these things are actually not difficult to check. Many of the old people who have lived in Dragon City for many years know about it. In the past, Bedivere once encountered a powerful enemy and was seriously injured. Later on, he was rescued by a young woman, during which the spark of love ignited. Later on, they crystallized, which is the little girl in the portrait, Irene. However, it didn't take long for him to be surprised to learn that the woman was actually the holy woman of Holy Light Religion. Later on, because of the issue of faith and position, the two of them had many contradictions. When they found that the contradiction could not be reconciled, they simply separated. Marina lived alone with her daughter in the church. The two of them didn't publicize their relationship, which was tantamount to divorce. However, to say whether Bedivere really gave up on this relationship or not, you can see it. In this regard, Aya could only helplessly shake her head. Encountering this kind of thing, what else could she say? Should she accuse Bedivere of being trapped by his love affair and abandoning his duty because of it? However, at that time she, the Night King, had already turned into a spirit of the brave departed to the east. The kingdom of Bretonia had also fallen apart, so Bedivere simply had no one to be loyal to. Accuse him of not placing righteousness before family? He was indebted to her for saving his life. Accuse him of abandoning his fellow dragon clan? However, combined with the current situation, the reason why holy light religion didn't purify the blood on the surface, but instead left some leeway, was because of Bedivere's contribution. Therefore, what else could Aya say? Even someone as wise as the Night King was deeply troubled by this situation. What are you going to do? Aya consulted Wang Lu's opinion. Wang Lu said, it's very simple. Kill them, cut off Bedivere's fetters and force him to go to Liangshan. Aya's eyes were cold. I don't like this joke. Wang Lu sighed. I don't like it either. So let's look at the next method. Find a beautiful girl to tempt Bedivere, let him fall in love with someone else, and forget the mother and daughter that can't possibly develop. Aya shook her head. This is also not feasible. If Bedivere is so easy to fall in love with someone else, how could he be troubled until now? He obviously still has feelings for Marina, and simply can't let go. Wang Lu sneered. Then we'll force him to fall in love with someone else. Find an opportunity to get him drunk, let him sleep with a beautiful girl and leave behind a descendant. When the time comes, his sense of responsibility will force him to do something. Aya angrily said, don't you have an open and above-board idea? What's the difference between us and holy light religion if we act so despicably? Wang Lu said, then let's change to the next method, which is also the one that I'm most willing to implement. It's the best of both worlds and it's not despicable. Aya didn't have much confidence. What is it? Wang Lu sternly said, bring Marina and Irene to our side. Aya froze for a moment, and then vigorously shook her head. Although it sounds good, there's no possibility of implementing it. Marina is the holy woman of holy light religion, and Irene is the candidate holy woman. Their faith in holy light must be very devout, so how could it be easily shaken? Moreover, if it really makes sense, Bedivere should have already done it after so many years. Wang Lu sneered. You're comparing Bedivere, that unisex fool, with me? As the leader of the Wisdom sect, the #1 church in 9 regions, I started my career by doing ideological propaganda work. Hearing this, Aya was indeed a bit shaken. If it was someone else, it would be fine, but when Wang Lu was serious, his incitement was indeed unparalleled. Not to mention others, wasn't she the best example? A few months ago, she was still on the Spirit Sword Mountain, relying on the array arranged by the Heavenly Sword Hall elders to barely keep her spirit of the brave departed. However, through this dialogue, Wang Lu had established her confidence. The power of the oath that was about to dissipate gathered back together, and her spirit of the brave departed became more and more stable. This ability to turn the hand and turn the clouds around was really admirable. How are you going to convince them? Although I believe you may have some expertise in doctrinal debate, this is the core parish of holy light religion. Openly promoting heretical theory, just wait to face the sanction of the Inquisitor. Wang Lu said, who's interested in debating doctrinal with them? There's no point in debating with a deeply poisoned swindler. What they need is not a debate but an electric shock treatment. Therefore, if we want to do it, we have to take drastic measures. Specifically? Wang Lu patted his chest. Exert my charm and make them fall in love with me. Humph, they actually dare to corrupt my Bretonia's knight cadres. I must let them taste my old Wang's stick. Chapter 304. Is this your so-called best of both worlds method without any despicable elements? After a long silence, Aya tremblingly asked. Wang Lu said, what's the problem? Tell me what's the problem. Woman, this is called without any despicable elements? You're going to add shame to my most loyal subordinate that can never be washed, yet you ask me what's the problem? Wang Lu was surprised. Hey, why are you so overreacting? Isn't it just a Tauren? What's the big deal? In any case, Bedivere played with her and didn't want her anymore. Even if I wear these old shoes, Bedivere's athlete's foot. Aya resolutely said, I will never allow this kind of thing. Wang Lu narrowed his eyes and carefully observed Aya's reaction. Actually, I'm not a wife con. I'm just saying that, but I always feel that you're a bit overly sensitive about this matter, as if poking your sore spot. What's wrong? Have you been pried in the past? Aya gawked for a long time. Inwardly she was secretly amazed. When did this Wang Lu become so sensitive? However, her face was as cold as ice as she avoided the topic. In short, I don't like this method. That's fine. Marina is a wife con, so I'll let it go and seduce Irene. You can't blame me for this, can you? Aya seemed to have a new understanding of Wang Lu. Her eyes widened in disbelief. You, a little girl less than 14 years old, you dare to lay your hands on her? Wang Lu laughed. Irene, my fire of life, my light of desire, my sin, my soul. Shut up. Alas, this won't do, that won't do. Why are you, the Night King, so difficult to please? Wang Lu annoyedly said, that being the case, I can only use the last resort. Last resort? Considering Wang Lu's bottom line, Aya couldn't help but feel a chill run down her spine. Yes, although it's the last resort, morally speaking, it's better than the previous ones. Although there are elements of going too far. Can you not go too far? Of course, let's just go back home and give up saving the Breton Dragon clan. At the mention of this topic, Aya finally fell silent. As the King of Knights, Aya had extremely high standards in terms of morality, but as the ruler of a country, how could she not understand that there were many times when things could not be done perfectly? Tell me about your method. Wang Lu said, it's still the same trick. Make Marina and Irene give up their beliefs and join our side. But this time it's not me but her. With that, Wang Lu pointed his finger at Lu Li. His playmate Lu Li, who was playing on the side, widened her eyes, pointed at herself and asked, me? Wang Lu said to Aya, the main force is Lioli and Xiaobai. Of course when it's necessary you also have to go. In short, it's you girls who will appear and seduce them until they are so infatuated that they will even forget about the holy light and unknowingly fall into our embrace. In this case, even if it's the Tauren, the damage will be less than mine. Aya could only be dumbfounded by this bizarre method. Holy light religion does not prohibit marriage, but there is indeed a certain degree of unfair treatment for those who marry or take a wife. Therefore many people, in order to go higher, would rather restrain their feelings. In this process they often let their feelings deformed, transferring their desire for the opposite sex to their friends of the same sex. Simply put, that's homosexuality. The homosexual atmosphere in holy light religion is somewhat heavy, so it's not uncommon for the holy women to play with each other. Therefore, to a certain extent, it's more convenient for you to make your move than me. I've already conceived the general plan. Marina and Irene are devout believers of holy light religion, and they like to develop new followers, especially among Dragon City guards. Therefore this area has always been a restricted area under Bedivir's control, and the proportion of believers is very low. And that pair of mother and daughter have always hoped to close the distance between holy light religion and Dragon City Master through this method. Therefore as long as you pretend to be a little interested in holy light religion, but not a strong audience, they will definitely pester you, hoping to develop you into the church and become a breakthrough for Dragon City guards. During this period, even if there are some special requirements, they will try their best to satisfy them. Then I have to mention Dragon City guards. This relatively closed military group has a congenital defect, which will inevitably lead to some special phenomenon. Aya, you've led the army so you should understand. In short, because of the strict management and closed living environment, the hot-blooded soldiers, due to the lack of heterosexual partners, would transfer their desire to their comrades in arms. In other words, homosexuality. Among Dragon City guards, the homosexual atmosphere is also somewhat heavy. Therefore you have to inherit the glorious tradition of Dragon City guards and express your love to Marina and Irene. They will certainly uphold the traditional etiquette of holy light religion and respond positively to you. In short, as long as you use your means to make that pair of mother and daughter unswervingly devoted to you, everything will be fine. Bedivere will not be cuckolded, Marina and her daughter will not continue to suffer in the hands of holy light religion, and we will get the most important support on the road to restoring our country. One mole at a time, what are you still hesitating for? On the third day after the plan was finalized, Wang Lu and the others officially began to act. The scene was the commercial district in the center of Dragon City, which was also the most prosperous part of the city. Large and small merchants were distributed in the neatly planned streets, which were bustling with traffic and crowds of people. As the largest city in Bretonia, Dragon City had the status of a transportation hub that extended in all directions, rich and extensive products, and almost all of the ambitious merchants in the country. Dragon City was not only the most powerful force in Bretonia, but also the largest commercial city in Bretonia. In the center of the commercial district was a wide square, which was particularly luxurious in this area where every inch of land was worth its weight in gold. A circle of seats was set up around the square for people to take a short rest. At the same time, the dining area was also thoughtfully set up here. On the edge of the square, outside an exquisite candy store, a petite and cute little girl was lying on her stomach outside the transparent glass window, drooling over the candy inside the store. It was just that, after the little girl put her tender little hand into her pocket and touched the few coins that she could count on her fingers, she could not help but be discouraged. With this money, it would be a problem to buy a vegetarian biscuit in the most high-end candy store in Dragon City's commercial district. As for the crystal candy personally made by the candy master, it was even more out of reach. The little girl held back her saliva and calculated how many months she would have to ask her mother for an advance to buy that jar of crystal candy based on her pocket money. As the treasure of the candy store, the sales of the crystal candy was not particularly good. However, it was impossible for it to quietly lie in the window and wait for her for a few months. How would she explain it to her mother when she went back? At this time in the quiet and deserted candy store, a white-haired old man, who was also the owner of the candy store, walked to the front of the window, bent down and stretched out his hand. Under the incredulous eyes of the little girl, he picked up the crystal candy that was like a crown surrounded by stars. Why did he pick it up? Is it because he pitied me and wanted to give me the candy jar? Oh, thank the holy light, may the holy light bless this merciful old man. He will certainly live to 100 years old. Please take it, this is the crystal candy you wanted. The little girl subconsciously stretched out her arms, trying to hug the candy jar, but with a bang, it hit the window. Then, in her line of sight, the crystal candy jar fell into the hands of another person. It was an Oriental girl dressed in a gorgeous colorful dress. In the colorful candy store, she looked even more gorgeous and colorful than the surrounding candy. Every frown and every smile could make people intoxicated. The owner of the candy store was a retired veteran of the Dragon City Guard's kitchen. He had fought many enemies in the battlefield, and his heart was as hard as iron. However, under the gorgeous face of the Oriental girl, he appeared to be ill at ease. Thank you. The Oriental girl took the candy jar, and her smile became even sweeter. She handed the 10 magic coins to the owner and happily walked out with the candy jar. Before he even stepped out of the store, he impatiently opened the jar and took out a sparkling and translucent candy. A strange fragrance spread in all directions, attracting the attention of many passers-by. The girl looked at the crystal candy, gently sniffed it, and then closed her eyes and put it in her mouth. The next moment, a burst of happiness that could be felt by bystanders gushed out. The moment the girl tasted the candy, her expression changed, causing the surrounding onlookers to involuntarily swallow, greatly increasing their appetites. A little girl who witnessed the whole process opened her eyes wide and kept swallowing, swallowing, and swallowing again. In an instant, the little girl who grew up under the illumination of the holy light, a trace of hidden bitterness arose in her heart. Why wasn't I the one holding the candy jar? Because I'm not pious enough, so the holy light used this to test me? At this moment, she suddenly saw that the Oriental girl turned her head and saw her eyes full of curiosity and friendliness. Then, the Oriental girl said to her in fluent common language, "Do you want to eat together?" The little girl was stunned. She felt that the holy light that had just left her had once again arrived, and her whole body was shrouded in happiness and joy. Really? Yes, Master said, good things should be shared with the people you like. With that, the Oriental girl handed the candy jar to the little girl. Luli, this is for you. The little girl hesitated for a moment. Looking at the other party's sweet smile that was like the holy light, she made up her mind to forget her mother's advice. Don't eat strangers' food. Then she carefully reached into the candy jar and pinched one, treating it as a treasure. Irene, big sister, thank you. Chapter 305. The central square of Dragon City's commercial district was also the dining center of the commercial district. Around the spacious square, there were all kinds of food and beverage shops. The food and beverage shops from all over the world exuded a tempting aroma, which intertwined with each other in the square, creating an absolutely irresistible temptation for the passers-by. Among them, a wonderful fragrance stood out, which left a deep impression on the passers-by. If there was a culinary expert, perhaps they would be able to recognize that it was the taste of crystal candy. From the most upscale candy shop in Dragon City's commercial district, it was a luxury candy developed by the famous candy master in Bretonia's food and beverage industry, using high-end alchemy materials. A small can of it cost 10 magic coins, which was a sky-high price that ordinary people could only dream of in their lifetime. At this moment, two girls sat side by side, happily sharing the taste of the candy. Lu Li's temperament was simple and straightforward, and she did things in a generous manner. If she liked something, she would happily eat it, and if she didn't like it, she wouldn't touch it. This crystal candy was expensive, but in her opinion, it was just a particularly delicious candy. The girl held the candy can and put one crystal-like candy after another into her mouth. Her face was constantly brimming with a happy expression, which made many passers-by intoxicated, but they also secretly sighed that this beautiful girl was a complete waste of God's gift. Little Irene was much more careful. Although she was the daughter of the Holy Light Religion Holy Woman and the Dragon City Master, and was born with unlimited wealth, she had a natural devotion to food. The girl held the candy, sat upright on the bench and solemnly prayed. "Thank the merciful Holy Light for giving me the candy. Irene will certainly cherish the blessing of the Holy Light." After a long and tedious prayer, Irene excitedly opened her eyes and carefully put the candy into her mouth. Her small face suddenly bloomed with a smile. The nearby Luli looked at her with interest. "What did you just say?" While holding the candy in her mouth, Irene carefully savored the sweet taste from her mouth into her whole body. She then replied, "That's the prayer before the meal, to thank the Holy Light for the gift." Luli curiously asked, "Why thank the Holy Light?" "That candy was given to you by me." Irene quickly explained, "Of course I'm grateful to Big Sister. However, I also had to thank the omnipotent Holy Light, because without the Holy Light's guidance, I wouldn't have met my older sister, nor would I have obtained this candy. The Holy Light created everything in the world. Without the Holy Light, there would be no world and there would be no happiness for us. Everything we have comes from the Holy Light, so we must always remember our gratitude." Luli found it hard to agree. "But this doesn't make sense. I'm clearly a 9 regions person, and we 9 regions have our own legend of creation. My cause and effect has nothing to do with the Holy Light. So, if I share the candy with you, it can't be said to be the guidance of the Holy Light." Irene looked confused. Furthermore, if everything in the world comes from the Holy Light, then apart from happiness, are the pains of the world also caused by the Holy Light? Irene explained, "The suffering of the world comes from the original sin of man. Humans are born filthy, and they need suffering to purify their bodies and minds. In the end, they will merge with the sea of Holy Light and enjoy endless happiness." Humans are born filthy? Is this innate turbid chi bestowed upon humans by the Holy Light? No, it's because the ancestors of human committed an unforgivable sin, which tarnished their own purity. Irene tried to recall the teachings that she learned in the church. Luli asked, "Then when the ancestors of human, let's not talk about whether it was in the Western continent or 9 regions, made a mistake, why didn't the Holy Light stop it?" Irene was stunned for a moment. "Probably because the Holy Light didn't notice it at that time?" Luli asked again, "But since the Holy Light created everything, it should know that the human at that time might make a mistake, so it should seriously warn them or strictly guard them. Because of the lax guard, the human made a mistake, so the Holy Light should be responsible for it." Irene's confusion was even more intense. Big Sister, what you said is so strange, I've never heard of it before." Luli nodded. "It's very strange, but who told Senior Brother to let me memorize it?" "Senior Brother? It's nothing." Luli shook her head and then handed over a crystal candy. "After I came to Bretonia, I saw a lot of people believe in the Holy Light, so I always wanted to know what the Holy Light is. At the same time, I also have a lot of questions about the Holy Light. Unfortunately, it seems like you don't know." Irene was a bit embarrassed. "Hey, there are a lot of things that Irene doesn't know. I haven't learned my teachings. However, Big Sister, if you're interested in the Holy Light, I can ask my mom to guide you to the Holy Light. She's the holy woman of the church, so she can certainly answer your confusion." Luli was surprised. "Holy woman? Is that really possible?" "Of course." Irene vigorously nodded. "As long as I earnestly plead, my mom will definitely agree. She likes to explain the doctrine to people and guide them to the Holy Light." "That's great." Luli revealed a pleasantly surprised look. "Actually, I have several friends who are also interested in the Holy Light. I wonder if they can come and listen to it?" "Yes, no problem." "You said there's a sister from the Eastern 9 regions who shared the crystal candy with you?" That night, in the Dragon City Cathedral, Holy Woman Marina asked her daughter about her day's itinerary and slightly frowned. "How could you casually eat other people's things? Have you thanked that sister?" Irene earnestly raised her hand. "Yes. Irene sincerely thanked her and blessed the big sister with the holy light. Well done. Marina happily touched her daughter's head. Although she was young, she was already quite sensible. However, when we ate the candy together, that sister asked me a lot of strange questions. Irene could only answer a few of them. There were a lot that I couldn't answer. What are they? Irene then repeated Lu Li's question once again. Upon hearing this, Marina smiled. Actually, the answers to these questions are in our doctrine. You can't answer them because your understanding of the doctrine is not deep enough. Oh. Irene was a bit depressed, but she soon cheered up. Mom, sister said that she and her friends are very interested in the doctrine of the holy light. I promised her that I would ask you to preach for them. Is that okay? Me preach? Marina was stunned. Sister said that on her next rest day she would bring her friends to the church, which is 15 days later. Is that okay? As the holy woman of holy light religion, Marina, of course, was happy to attract more neutral people to believe in the holy light. However, she was keenly aware of a detail. 15 days for a rest day? Most of the people in Dragon City only had 7 to 10 days for a rest day. 15 days was the standard for Dragon City guards. Sister is a Dragon City guard, a new addition. A new addition to Dragon City Guard? No wonder. Marina inwardly sighed. Regarding the legion that was directly under Bedivere, Holy Light religion could do nothing about it. Bedivere promised the church many conditions, but he did not allow them to extend their tentacles too much into the legion. Dragon City guards could spontaneously believe in the holy light, but they would never allow the church to openly preach in the barracks. At the same time, the holy light guards, whether it was in promotion or in daily affairs, were inexplicably treated worse than the others. Over time, people naturally understood the preference of the Dragon City master, and thus, most of them consciously avoided the holy light. Only the newly joined Dragon City guards would not understand the situation and take the initiative to approach the holy light. However, this predestined person actually came from 9 regions, which was really an anomaly. This group of foreign visitors who were not contaminated by the holy light were usually classified as incurable heretics by the church. However, Marina intended to give it a try. Perhaps this was an opportunity, a bridge between holy light religion and Bedivere. Half a month later, Dragon City Cathedral welcomed 2 young girls from the eastern 9 regions. One was lively and active, wearing a gorgeous dress, walking like a rainbow. The other was tranquil and calm, revealing a reassuring temperament. They were Lu Li and her little friend Bai Shixian. Holy woman Marina was waiting at the door. Beside her, Irene excitedly waved her arm. Big sister here? Seeing that there were only 2 of them, Marina was slightly disappointed. However, thinking of the extraordinary significance of this trip, she cheered up and revealed a holy smile. Afterward, the holy woman took Lu Li and Bai Shixian to her courtyard and began to preach under the shade of a tree. The filth of people comes from their own ignorance. Only by having the holy light in their heart and experiencing suffering can they wash away the filth and obtain great wisdom. The holy light is like a strict father who bestows suffering, and like a loving mother who bestows warmth. The problem that Lu Li previously gave to Irene was solved one by holy woman Marina. As a holy woman, her understanding of the doctrine was very profound, so Lu Li's problem was not a problem at all. The difficulties encountered in preaching were far more acerbic than these. In fact, in Marina's view, the fact that Lu Li could ask such a question was precisely the proof that she was willing to understand the holy light and think about the holy light. Unknowingly, more than half a day had passed. The sun had already set, and the day's preaching had come to an end. Lu Li and Bai Shixian revealed a satisfied look. After expressing their gratitude, they took their leave. Marina sighed with great relief. For many years, this was the first time that she had carried out such a long preaching for Dragon City guards. In the past, when the Dragon City guards met her, they would avoid her like the plague, for fear that the city master would know that they had a relationship with holy light religion. Moreover, the aptitude of these 2 Eastern girls was really amazing. The lively one was like a crystal, sparkling and translucent, like the legendary born spotless saint. And the other one was an elegant and quiet girl, which exuded a majestic aura of nature. For the holy light, these were the best aptitude. With a little bit of polishing, they would shine brilliantly, and their future achievements would definitely far exceed her own. For a time, Marina couldn't help but sigh with emotion. Could this really be the blessing of the holy light? After so many years of bitter waiting, she finally ushered in an opportunity. For the next month or so, every rest day, Lu Li and Bai Shixian would come to the church to listen to holy woman Marina's preaching. Marina could clearly feel that the two Eastern girls under her guidance were getting closer and closer to the holy light. Among them, Bai Shixian even spontaneously released the spell of holy light, which was even faster than Lu Li, whom she valued more. The affinity of these two people to the holy light was simply appalling. In the evening after the preaching, Marina was very pleased to hear Lu Li's slightly hesitant question. "Marina, can we join holy light religion?" At this moment, Marina felt that her hard work during this period of time had been completely rewarded. Of course you can. Holy light religion welcomes all the devout believers of holy light. However, for you, this is a big deal, so you need to seriously consider it before making a decision. We will seriously consider it. Lu Li nodded and then bid farewell to Bai Shixian. After sending the two girls away, Marina gently sighed. Looking at the distant Dragon City fortress that had sunk into the twilight, the gloomy castle and the sunset-dyed golden Dragon City as if separated by yin and yang, Marina inwardly swore to the holy light, "I will personally eliminate this barrier, I will let him return to the embrace of the light, I will." Chapter 306. What's the point of doing this? After Lu Li and Bai Shixian returned to the Dragon City barracks area, Aya couldn't bear it anymore and thus asked the question that had puzzled her for a long time. "You want to use Bedivir's wife and daughter as a breakthrough point. I agree with this idea, but what exactly are you doing now? Let Lioli and Little White approach them and then what?" "That's right, Ms. Marina does value and love Lioli and Little White very much, but do you really think she will abandon her faith for the two of them? She is the church's holy woman, and her faith is so firm that even her beloved Bedivere could not shake it. You think people's heart is too simple." Wang Lu smiled lightly and looked at Aya with great interest. Aya sighed and said, "I don't want to blame you, but it's just a waste of time. Moreover, if they are in contact with each other for a long time, it's easy to see through them." Marina wanted to use this opportunity to establish communication with Dragon City. Her daughter Irene also recommended them, so she didn't suspect Little White and the others. However, if one observed carefully, they would still be able to find some clues. The holy woman of holy light religion is also a high-order profession, so her eyesight is not that weak. You're talking to yourself. When did I say that I wanted to shake Marina and her mother's faith in the holy light? Wang Lu said, "The pious belief in the holy light has never been the focus of the contradiction. The spiritual essence that the holy light advocated was the good virtues of the human world, such as tolerance, kindness, universal love, and so on. How could these qualities be the culprits that hindered Marina and Bedivere? Bedivere was not a demon from the abyss. It wasn't Marina's faith that caused the conflict between the couple, but the church she belonged to. If there were no holy light religion, how could there be so many troubles?" I was stunned. "You want to sow discord between her and the church? Actually, there's no need to sow discord. The concept of the saintess and the church have an irreconcilable contradiction. The concept of a saintess was actually a highly idealized product. It required a woman to be close to the holy light and to be pure and untainted. Only then would she have the power of holiness and show the beauty of the holy light to the world. However, how could one walk in this world without being stained by the mortal world? The so-called saintess was just a product of excessive protection, a product of abnormal growth. She did not know the evils of the world. On the other hand, holy light religion, although gathered because of the belief in holy light, is essentially an interest organization, and any interest organization is never clean." I sighed. "That's true. Therefore, sooner or later, the contradiction between the holy maiden and the church will break out. When the time comes, either the holy maiden chooses to accept the reality, or the church forces them to accept the reality. Therefore, the career life of the holy maiden is generally very short. Marina's child is already so big, which is already considered as overage. Perhaps there's also Bedivire's contribution behind this." "Bedivere?" Aya closed her eyes. "It does seem like something he would do." Wang Lu said, "But the conflict that should erupt will erupt sooner or later. What we need to do is to give the general trend a little push." "Specifically?" "Sometimes as long as 2 or 3 rumors can produce a great effect. For example, Marina used preaching to the newcomers as a cover to secretly collude with Dragon City guards in an attempt to harm holy light religion. Will such a low-level rumor work? No matter what, Marina is still the holy maiden of the church. Of course it will work, because this is the immutable human nature." Wang Lu paused and then, as if deeply touched, said, "Compared to the truth, people always prefer rumors. This is simply groundless. Inside the Dragon City Cathedral, it was the time for the assembly, so the atmosphere was solemn. However, Holy Maiden Marina suddenly burst out under the astonished eyes of many clergymen. Her voice slightly trembled, containing boiling anger. "Wuxia, do you dare to say out loud what you just said in secret? Let everyone hear it?" The woman named by Marina was a beautiful female priest. Upon hearing these words she was slightly startled, and then revealed a malicious smile. "Nothing, I was just saying that these 2 days there are a lot of rumors saying that you and the 2 Dragon City guards are very close, and every once in a while you would meet them. Every time you meet, it would be a whole day, and I don't know what you are secretly talking about. Some people also said that you and the 2 Dragon City guards took the preaching opportunity to secretly collude with Bedivere, which may be detrimental to the church." Me and the Dragon City guards secretly colluding with each other in an attempt to harm the church? This kind of ridiculous rumor, how dare you say it? If I really wanted to collude with Dragon City's city master, how could I have? As she spoke up to hear, Marina suddenly came to her senses and stopped speaking. She forcefully suppressed her anger and her face flushed red. "Wuxia, speaking nonsense is an original sin." Wuxia lightly smiled. "Don't misunderstand, I didn't take it seriously. Originally, I just said it as a joke to my sisters, to let everyone know how stupid the world is, that they dare to spread any kind of lies. Unexpectedly, the Holy Maiden has sharp ears and even took it seriously. You are the church's Holy Maiden, personally bestowed by the Archbishop. Who dares to doubt your faith in the Holy Light and your loyalty to the church?" Upon hearing this, Marina's anger didn't diminish, but instead, it increased. However, she felt helpless. The other priests reacted differently. Basically, everyone present knew that Wuxia was deliberately targeting Marina. Initially, she and Marina came from the same monastery, and in all aspects she was above Marina. When the two of them got along, they had a sense of superiority. Later on, they competed together for the position of Holy Maiden. Wuxia thought that the victory was already in her grasp, but in the end she unexpectedly lost to Marina, who was inferior to her in all aspects. Since then she bore a grudge. There was no more peace. It was just that, the rumor that Wuxia said was also heard by many people present. There were many versions of it. Some, like what Wuxia said, were undoubtedly laughable, but there were also some that very well satisfied the dark psychology of many people, which was quite marketable. In the past few days, Marina frequently met with the 2 Dragon City guards from 9 regions in her own mansion. This was an undeniable fact and many people had seen it with their own eyes. It would be ridiculous to say that Marina was plotting something. Even if she was plotting something, she wouldn't choose to do it in the cathedral. But what about another reason? For example, they heard that the 2 9 regions girls were extremely beautiful. And the Holy Maidens of Holy Light religion were perhaps the group with the highest proportion of homosexuals in the entire 9 regions. Nowadays, all kinds of rumors were circulating, which vividly described the scene of the several people's private meeting, which was fascinating. It was just that, as the subject of the conversation, Marina was naturally furious. She was not angry because of the damage to her reputation, but because the bridge of communication between her and Dragon City guards was likely to be broken. Whenever she thought of this, it was difficult for her to suppress her anger. After the meeting, she wanted to go back to her mansion to rest, but she was called by Archbishop Rowan. For her, the Archbishop has always been like a father, majestic and loving. Now that she encountered trouble, she really wanted to get comfort from the Archbishop. However, after meeting him, Rowan's words made her feel like she had fallen into an ice cave. "Marina, you don't have to see those 2 9 regions girls again." "What?" Marina incredulously asked. "Your Excellency, do you believe those absurd rumors?" "Of course I don't, and no one really believes it. But, in the end, the impact is not good." Marina anxiously said, "Your Excellency, Lu Li and Bai Shixian are the candidates with the best affinity for Holy Light that I have ever seen. Their qualifications are far above mine. Even the Supreme Holy Woman of the Holy City may not be able to compare to them. If we can absorb them, it would be the Church's biggest harvest in recent years. And the last time we met, they have already expressed that they want to join the Church." Rowan sighed. "I know that for you to value them so much that you don't hesitate to meet them many times, there must be something special about them. But some rumors have spread too far." "That's just a rumor," Marina indignantly argued. "Why do you care about rumors?" "Because rumors have power. Many times, a person's success or failure often depends on the influence of 1 or 2 rumors." Rowan solemnly said, "I personally promoted you from the monastery, so I have high hopes for you." Seeing the Archbishop being so serious, Marina felt powerless. After a long while she calmed down a bit. Then as long as the rumor is extinguished from the source, isn't it? Let me guess, who are the people who spread these rumors? Yulia? Judith? Karita? There are not too many people who know about my relationship with Bedivere. Enough. Archbishop Rowan suddenly roared. How can you be full of malicious suspicion towards your own brothers and sisters? Marina said, but yes, they believe in rumors and add fuel to the fire. They gloat and celebrate, which shows that they are not mature and still need to continue to temper themselves. But you are the church's holy woman, you can't have the same standard as them. Rowan harshly criticized. Moreover, the rumor is not spread by them. Then who could it be? No matter who it is, you don't need to care. Marina, your heart is in chaos. This is not what a holy woman should be like. Marina was silent for a long time. I'm sorry, my heart is indeed shaken. Go back and calm down. May the holy light be with you. Yes, Your Excellency. This half a month was an unprecedented torture. Marina suddenly seemed to have returned to a few years ago, when she and Bedivere completely broke off. It was also that kind of torment and pain. In fact, she didn't have much contact with Lu Li and Bai Shixian. In total, she only met them 5 times and it was only about 2 days, so it was impossible for her to really accumulate deep feelings. Perhaps her anger came more from grievance and unwillingness. What did I do wrong? Why must you so viciously suspect me and attack me? Why did people who have nothing to do with me, who have no grievance or enmity with me, join in the uproar? Why did even the Archbishop refuse to support me? What exactly is the problem here? Am I wrong, or is something else wrong? Mom, are you unhappy? Her daughter came to Marina's side with a worried look, which allowed the woman to finally stretch out her brows. It's nothing. Marina pitifully touched her daughter's head. I'm not unhappy. Oh, in 2 days, Sister Lu Li and the others will come. In 2 days? Marina looked up in a daze and her heart somewhat ached. 2 days later she would have to say goodbye to them. If there was no accident, those 2 clever and well-behaved girls would become an unforgettable memory in her long life. At the same time, far away in the Dragon City military camp area, the manipulator behind the scenes was carefully reading a freshly published newspaper. His expression gradually became excited. Everything is ready, the East Wind has arrived. In the newspaper, the news about the attack on the Eastern Church of Holy Light religion by the heretical cultivators of 9 regions was printed on the front page. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.